Ren trained with a wooden sword under his father's watch while trying to strengthen his weak body. A sudden attack knocked him into the air before he could defend himself properly. Dust covered the ground as Ren fell again, but his father calmly corrected his mistake and pushed him to improve. Exhaustion spread through Ren's body after the harsh training ended, though his father praised his effort. Spring arrived years later, and Ren quietly realized how much time had passed since his reincarnation. A quiet village stood deep within the Liomel Empire, where Ren began his second life after reincarnating into another world. Confusion filled his mind during infancy, yet he slowly accepted the reality of living again inside a baby's body. Careful actions helped Ren hide his secret while his mother lovingly raised him each day. Strange abilities awakened soon after, allowing him to view status screens and sword-related powers unknown to others. Unlike the game he remembered, true strength and compatibility could not be measured so easily anymore. Ren realized the demon sword summoning skill did not exist in the original game and began searching for its hidden potential. Careful testing revealed the power was a unique skill that allowed him to summon mysterious demon swords. At first, only a tiny wooden sword appeared, leaving Ren disappointed by its weak form. Further study helped him understand that constant use and training would gradually strengthen both the skill and the weapon. New possibilities opened before Ren as he learned he could unlock stronger demon swords in the future. Pain struck Ren whenever he used the demon sword summoning skill too much, forcing him to endure dangerous headaches. Daily practice became part of his routine as he tried to increase his limited magic power little by little. Unexpected interruptions often stopped his training whenever his father entered the room and nearly discovered the secret. Memories of the game's dark future convinced Ren that this world followed the same cruel storyline. Determination filled his heart while he studied the world and trained constantly to protect himself from disaster. After turning 7, Ren finally began formal swordsmanship training under his father's guidance. Excitement pushed him forward as his father demonstrated the basics and ordered him to attack seriously. A hidden wooden demon sword appeared in Ren's hands while he prepared himself for the practice match. Swift movements carried Ren across the field as he launched a fast strike toward his father. Satisfaction crossed his father's face after seeing Ren's talent and determination during the training session. Ren pushed his young body through intense training, though exhaustion quickly drained his strength during practice. Heavy breathing forced him to stop, yet his father acknowledged the surprising endurance hidden within the child's body. Days soon followed a strict routine as Ren studied every morning and trained swordsmanship every afternoon. Research taught him that demon stones came from monsters and were needed to improve his demon sword abilities. Disappointment appeared when the stone rejected him, making Ren realize he needed to obtain one with his own power. Ren realized the world differed greatly from the game he once knew, forcing him to approach every challenge seriously. Another month passed peacefully in the village while Ren continued adapting to his new life and surroundings. Constant training sharpened his reactions as he repeatedly crossed swords with his father in the open field. Noticeable improvement appeared in Ren's movements, earning quiet recognition from his father during practice. Despite his progress, a single mistake in balance still sent Ren crashing hard onto the ground. Exhaustion overwhelmed Ren after another harsh training session, yet he refused to stop improving. Pride appeared on his father's face as he warned Ren not to damage his body through excessive efforts. Slow steps carried Ren home while fatigue weighed heavily on him after the long practice. Months of constant training finally pushed his demon sword summoning technique close to leveling up. Relief washed over Ren as he realized his steady progress was proof that hard work in this world truly mattered. Life in the village slowly became more meaningful as Ren continued training every day despite his growing injuries. Gentle care from his mother eased the pain in his damaged hands after another difficult practice session. Stories about the Ashton family reminded Ren that generations of knights had protected the village for years. Confusion filled Ren when his mother revealed that his father's courage was actually driven by fear. Worry remained in her heart because she feared that same reckless bravery could someday destroy him. Ren listened quietly as his mother explained how his father supported the village by hunting dangerous monsters. Confidence filled the house whenever his father returned safely and reassured the worried family. Love for his family motivated his father to keep fighting, despite the constant danger surrounding the village. Late that night, Ren reflected deeply on the meaning of family while staring into the dark sky. Painful memories from his previous life returned as Ren remembered the broken home and lonely childhood he once experienced. Memories from Ren's previous life resurfaced as he recalled how distance slowly destroyed his relationship with his mother. Regret lingered in his heart while he wondered about the hidden struggle she once carried alone. Training with his father continued every day, gradually strengthening both his body and determination. Complete exhaustion forced Ren onto the ground after another intense practice session in the field. Unlike his lonely past life, Ren finally found comfort and purpose within the warmth of his new family. Relentless training pushed Ren to his limits as his father demanded more from each practice session. Peaceful evenings with his family and quiet study sessions slowly became part of Ren's daily life. Another painful fall ended the training early, though Ren still tried to continue fighting through exhaustion. Shock crossed his mother's face after noticing the strange change in Ren's condition during practice. Confusion filled Ren's mind when he suddenly realized his body felt lighter and faster than before. A sudden burst of speed pushed Ren's body forward faster than he had ever moved before. Shock appeared on his father's face as Ren instantly closed the distance during the training match. Confusion filled Ren's mind after realizing his physical abilities had risen far beyond normal limits. Excitement spread through the battlefield while his father ordered him to continue attacking without hesitation. Powerful movements carried Ren past his father's defense, proving his training had finally produced visible results. Ren felt his speed and physical strength rising rapidly as the intense battle continued. Surprise spread across his father's face after witnessing Ren suddenly become much stronger during training. A swift attack carried Ren high into the air while his father struggled to defend against the pressure. Realization struck his father when he understood Ren's abilities were growing in the middle of combat itself. The training finally stopped after Ren lost control of his momentum and crashed directly into his father. Excitement filled the training field after Ren's father realized his son possessed a rare skill. Joy overwhelmed his father as he believed Ren's sudden growth came from the results of hard training. Meanwhile, Ren secretly confirmed that his demon sword skill had finally reached the next level. Dreams of becoming a famous knight quickly appeared as his father imagined Ren leaving the small village behind. Concerns soon replaced the excitement because the family lacked enough money to properly examine Ren's skill. Ren tried to avoid revealing his rare skill because unnecessary attention could create future problems for him. Confusion appeared on his parents' faces after seeing how calmly Ren reacted to such an important discovery. Careful thoughts guided Ren as he chose to keep the demon sword summoning skill hidden from outsiders. Instead of dreaming about fame, Ren hoped to live peacefully in the village while supporting his family. Determination filled his heart as Ren promised himself he would become strong enough to protect his father from danger. For 7 years, Ren found more happiness with his new family than he had ever known in his previous life. Memories of his old world slowly faded as gratitude toward his parents grew stronger each day. Acceptance finally settled in Ren's heart when he realized he had truly become a different person. A simple wish guided Ren's future as he hoped the three of them could continue living peacefully together. Warmth filled the quiet moment while his parents embraced him like a true member of their family. Ren quietly accepted his new life and treasured the warmth he found within his family. Hope guided his heart as he decided to protect this peaceful future from the tragedy he remembered. Determination pushed Ren toward a different path from the original story that once ended in despair. A mysterious girl connected to his destined future eventually appeared before him despite the changing timeline. Countless challenges awaited Ren as he prepared himself to resist the cruel fate surrounding the world. Ren peacefully enjoyed village life, unaware of the tragic future waiting beyond his happy family moments. In the northern city of Clausel within the Liomel Empire, a quiet garden rests beneath the castle. A young noble girl sits alone on a bench. Her training recently concluded. Boredom lingers as she reflects on her routine. A seasoned knight approaches, noticing her unusual mood and posture. Reports arrive that several soldiers have fallen authority shifts, as she is no longer assigned as his practice partner. Orders demand the knight patrol the Northwest Territory. The scale of the threat becomes clear. Something far more troubling now moves within the Empire's borders. 3 years have passed since Ren first leveled up. He returns from the fields carrying a basket, aware of how much time has gone by. His status confirms demon sword summoning has reached level 2. A wooden demon sword grants minor control over natural magic. Despite steady effort, experience remains far from the next level. Progress feels slow and restricted. Most days are spent farming and preparing for winter rather than training. Limited sword practice raises proficiency slightly, yet that strength is enough for peaceful village life. Ren declines praise about becoming a knight and insists he will remain in the village content with his quiet life. Riders appear on the hill, bearing the Baron's crest. Tension spreads as villagers recognize the approaching force. An armed knight steps forward while soldiers surround the farmhouse. The sudden visit disrupts the peaceful setting. A young officer questions the villagers about their presence and residence. Ren observes from a fence, assessing the situation. The Baron's authority weighs over the territory and the atmosphere grows uneasy. Then Ren learns that his father serves a baron who governs the territory under a feudal order. Knights answer to higher nobles, forming a strict chain of command. Reports describe severe damage caused by a beast nearby. Concern spreads as armored knights review the situation. Witnesses claim the creature moves swiftly and has already attacked several villages, leaving casualties behind. Patrols continue without success. A vigilance team is formed to suppress the threat. Questions arise about the beast's rank. Ren realizes it requires an organized subjugation unit. The beast is identified under the guild's ranking system. At minimum, it stands at D rank, far above common threats. Such creatures rival early dungeon bosses. Even 5 average knights would struggle to defeat one. Officials consider recruiting additional knights to strengthen security investigations. Continue, yet no clear solution appears. Distance from the Lord's city delays reinforcements. Villages may wait nearly 20 days for support. Until aid arrives, patrols will intensify in the forest. Residents are urged to endure while preparations move forward. Ren reflects on the beast's identity and offers the knights rest in the village. Though cautious, he considers using his knowledge to understand the threat. Attention shifts toward him as the captain accepts the hospitality. Villagers observe quietly while Ren studies the armored leader. Realization dawns that the man before him commands the territory's knights. Respect replaces tension as introductions conclude. Horses are tended and simple food is shared. The atmosphere softens as soldiers recover their strength. After a brief stay, the knights depart the village. Ren watches them leave, aware the conflict has only begun. Several knights discussed Ren's unusual talent and recognized his strength, despite his young age. While the village prepared for another hunt, the elder quietly worried about Ren's safety during the dangerous mission. Ren remembered how powerful the hunter truly was and understood why even skilled knights feared facing him directly. The hunt began early as traps were prepared across the field to lure nearby beasts. Wild creatures gathered around the bait, drawn by the scent of fresh meat in the area. Ren realized the missing little boars were meant to attract a stronger beast lurking nearby. The hunter confirmed his suspicion and carefully searched the area for tracks hidden around the forest trail. Deep inside the woods, Ren followed the path while silently observing the strange stone ahead. After hearing the knight's warning, the hunter changed his routine and remained in the forest until sunset. Later that night, Ren worried that the hunter was pushing himself too hard as the dangerous beast still remained nearby. Ren learned that the family had no time for sword training because the recent hunts kept everyone occupied. Although he tried to stay calm, Ren still worried that something dangerous might happen soon. The quiet life Ren enjoyed with his family had continued peacefully for more than 10 years. During the bath, Ren noticed his exhausted father slowly falling asleep after another long day of hunting. As the days passed, the hunter returned to the forest once again to continue tracking the hidden beast. On the 10th night, Ren noticed his father still had not returned from the forest hunt. Despite the danger outside, Ren insisted on searching for him alongside his worried mother. Fear spread through the house as Ren refused to stay behind and prepared to leave anyway. His mother quietly admitted she often feared the day the hunter might suffer a terrible injury. Carrying torches through the dark forest, Ren and his mother carefully followed the trail deeper into the night. Ren and his mother noticed distant torchlights near the entrance leading toward the forest bridge. Carefully crossing the bridge, they listened to the rushing river below while moving deeper into the dark area. Ren slowly adjusted to the darkness as they stopped at the edge where dangerous beasts were known to roam. Beyond the bridge, his mother spotted a figure resting beneath a large tree inside the forest. Rushing closer with panic, they finally discovered Ren's exhausted father leaning silently against the tree. Ren and his mother felt relieved after confirming the figure beneath the tree was truly his missing father. However, Ren quickly noticed something strange about the place where the hunter had collapsed. Ignoring the danger, his mother rushed across the bridge while Ren hurried after her through the darkness. The closer they approached, the more uneasy his mother became as she called out to the injured hunter. Under the tree, Ren's father finally revealed severe wounds covering his body after the brutal hunt. Ren panicked after discovering his wounded father struggling to breathe beneath the dark forest tree. Ren noticed the dangerous silence around the forest while protecting his injured father near the tree. A sudden movement rushed toward them. Moments later, a giant boar burst from the darkness and charged directly at Ren. Fear spread across his face. The beast slammed into him before the others could react. Dirt scattered as Ren struggled to block its fangs. Soon, the boar pinned him to the ground and crushed his defense with brute force. His mother hurried forward desperately while Ren fought to keep the monster away from his throat. 2 more wild boars appeared while Ren remained trapped beneath the first beast. Panic spread through the group as the danger quickly increased. Realizing his strengthened body could still move, Ren forced the boar away with all his strength. Another monster immediately rushed toward his mother, causing everyone to scatter across the ground. Ren slammed into a tree after being thrown aside by the attack. Despite the pain, he noticed one boar collapse from a single strike while another charged toward him again. Ren swung his blade upward and struck the charging boar with enough force to throw it into the air. Another beast rushed in, yet Ren reacted quickly and knocked it aside before it reached him. Heavy breathing filled the area as he realized his training and skills had made him strong enough to fight back. After surviving the attack, the family finally returned safely to their quiet home near the mountains. Meanwhile, Ren's injured father rested inside the house while the tension from the battle slowly faded away. After returning home, the healer explained that Ren's father had survived. Although his condition remained unstable, relief slowly spread through the family. So Ren could not accept that weak monsters alone had caused such serious injuries to his father. A dark possibility entered his mind as he remembered rumors about a far more dangerous creature hiding deep inside the forest. Fear grew across the village because nobody knew when the monster might appear again. Meanwhile, Ren quietly searched for a way to stop the threat before more people suffered. The next day, Ren returned to the forest and found the dead boar partially eaten by other monsters. He quickly prepared to carry it home before attracting danger. Strange energy suddenly rose from the corpse and flowed directly into the bracelet on his arm. After checking his abilities, Ren realized the bracelet had strengthened his sword skills even further. He concluded that the bracelet absorbed power from magical stones hidden inside monsters. Later, Ren decided to inherit his father's duty and protect the village despite the risks ahead. Then Ren explained that nobody else in the village could fight monsters after his father became injured. Even so, his mother hesitated to accept his decision. Determination filled Ren's eyes as he asked for permission to protect the villagers until reinforcements arrived. That night, his mother stayed beside the injured man without sleeping, worried about the dangers ahead. The next morning, she finally allowed Ren to enter the forest before sunset. Before he left, she warned him not to wander too deeply into the forest alone. While traveling deeper into the forest, Ren remembered the special rock his mother mentioned and considered testing the sword's natural magic ability. Memories from the game returned to him about a powerful boss monster that could control natural magic. Suddenly, another small boar rushed out from the bushes and caught Ren off guard. After calming himself, he activated the sword and attempted to use its magic for the first time. Thick vines burst from the ground and wrapped tightly around the monster, stopping its movement completely. Excitement spread across Ren's face after seeing the vines completely restrain the trapped boar without difficulty. Although finishing the monster would be easy, he hesitated because he disliked causing unnecessary suffering. Soon Ren used the captured boar to lure other monsters and practice controlling his natural magic more efficiently. By the end of the first day, he successfully hunted 12 boars and returned home carrying them together with vines. The following day, Ren continued training in the forest and hunted another 12 monsters with growing confidence. By the third day, Ren had increased the number of boars he hunted and carried larger groups back from the forest. The fourth day passed the same way, yet he still avoided encountering the dangerous wanted monster hidden deeper inside the woods. As his training continued, Ren's bracelet neared another breakthrough, bringing him closer to unlocking a new demon sword ability. Later, he returned home exhausted after another long day of hunting. However, the atmosphere inside the house immediately changed when he learned his father's condition had suddenly worsened again. Ren's father suddenly grew weaker despite the large amount of medicinal herbs already used to keep him alive. Shock spread across Ren's face as his mother admitted she did not understand why the condition kept worsening. Meanwhile, the healer revealed that their remaining medical herbs were almost completely gone. Despair filled the room after everyone realized the final supply would be exhausted before morning arrived. At that moment, the healer urgently remembered another possible remedy and ordered the family to bring a special formula book from her house. Desperate to save his father, Ren immediately asked the healer whether another herb with healing effects still existed nearby. The healer explained that the plant once grew near the Tsurugi rock but had disappeared many years ago after a severe winter. After noticing the herb's appearance inside the old formula book, Ren realized he recognized it immediately. Silence filled the hallway as he recalled important memories from the game world. Ren finally identified the extinct plant as rondo grass, a rare healing herb once used in the original story. Despite the danger becoming greater at night, Ren refused to believe the healing herb had completely vanished from the forest. Determination pushed him forward as he ran alone through the dark mountains towards Tsurugi Rock. Thoughts of his dying father erased all hesitation, forcing Ren to continue deeper into the dangerous forest. Strange cries echoed through the trees while he searched desperately without slowing down. After a long run, Ren finally arrived before the enormous Tsurugi rock hidden in the darkness. Exhaustion covered Ren's face after his long search around the mountain near Tsurugi Rock. Finding nothing at the base, he decided to climb higher by using his natural magic to support himself along the cliff. Under the moonlight, Ren continued climbing despite his weakening body and nearly lost his grip several times. At the summit, countless rondo grass plants suddenly appeared before his eyes. Relief finally reached him as he realized the legendary healing herb had not gone extinct after all. While gathering the rondo grass, Ren discovered piles of bones and strange ornaments scattered across the summit. Unease spread through him after realizing the remains were not from monsters alone. Carrying the herbs carefully, Ren hurried down the mountain with a growing sense of danger. Before he could escape the forest, several small boars suddenly surrounded him from every direction. Ren immediately drew his sword and struck back as the monsters charged toward him at once. Then Ren quickly noticed the small boars were not attacking normally and seemed terrified of something nearby. A chilling presence suddenly emerged from the darkness, causing Ren to freeze in fear. Moments later, he finally discovered the true identity of the dangerous wanted monster hidden within the forest. Massive tails twisted violently through the night sky while the creature stood above the cliffs like a ruler of the mountain. Under the moonlight, the enormous wolf-like monster slowly revealed its terrifying form before Ren's eyes. Ren finally recognized the terrifying Chief Wolven, a powerful, unique monster ruling the forest at night. Under the moonlight, Chief Wolven's howl echoed across the forest, its strength radiating through the night air. Len dashed through the tall grass, gripping his sword tightly as he followed the creature's fading presence. The beast lunged without warning, forcing him to roll aside, the claws slicing trees like paper. Gathering his stance, Len observed carefully this was no ordinary monster, its movements sharp and unnaturally precise. A sudden gust erupted, leaves scattered violently. Len's eyes widened as he realized the creature commanded wind magic. Len lay on the ground, breath ragged as the monstrous wolf gathered violent winds around its body. Realization struck. Its power allowed invisible hands to strike and steal, making escape nearly impossible. Thou fear gripped him. Retreat wasn't an option. He steadied his sword, mind racing for strategy. A faint injury caught his eye. The beast's leg bore a wound that hadn't healed properly. Shock filled him. Memories surfaced of his father's hunt. That scar might be his father's doing. Len realized the beast's hesitation came from its lingering wound, the same one his father inflicted. Memories of his injured father surfaced. The knight had risked everything to protect their village. Determination replaced fear. He could not falter where his father had stood. Retreat was no longer an option. The monster unleashed a furious gale, yet Len steadied himself, weaving vines with his nature magic. Roots surged forward, binding the wolf's limbs. Even briefly restrained, it was enough. Len had seized his chance. Len leaped high, sword raised, striking toward the restrained beast wrapped tightly in his summoned vines. The impact landed with force, driving his blade deep as energy rippled violently through the forest ground. Cracks spread across the weapon's surface, shocking him as fragments of the blade began to scatter. He stared at the hilt, disbelief filling him. The enchanted sword of wood had reached its limit. Then Len stumbled back, realizing the danger. The vines weakened and the beast's counterattack loomed faster than before. Len's body trembled as mana surged uncontrollably, pain striking through him from the attempt to resummon the sword. Despite exhaustion, he swung his weapon again, deflecting the beast's charge with desperate precision and sheer willpower. The wolf retaliated fiercely, tossing him aside like a rag doll. Dust and blood filled the air. Struggling to rise, Len hid behind thick roots, gasping for breath as the beast's growl echoed closer, drawing on his last strength. He summoned vines from the earth, forming barriers to delay the relentless foe. Len's strength faded rapidly, his body trembling as pain surged and vision blurred from overusing his mana. Desperation struck, yet his thoughts turned to the herb clutched in his hand, a chance to recover. Memories of his injured father stopped him. Using it now would leave none for his recovery. Resolve hardened as his bracelet glowed faintly. Awakening power dormant within a weapon formed from his will. The beast's roar shattered the calm. Debris swirled as Len braced himself, ready for the next assault. Len struggled to remain hidden as the beast advanced, vines buying only a few seconds. With no mana remaining, he sprinted toward the fallen boars, chasing one last hope of survival. Magic stones within the corpses held power, absorbing just 3 could unlock a stronger weapon. A system prompt confirmed it. The demon's sword of metal was now accessible. He had to act fast. Vines erupted once more, enhanced by the new sword's energy, trapping the beast in a dense snare. A massive wolf emerged through the trees, forcing the boy to retreat behind a rocky outcrop. Vines restrained the beast briefly, allowing him to flee with his remaining strength toward fallen boars. He arrived at the bodies, hoping to extract the last bits of mana from their stones. Unlocking the demon's sword of metal, he prepared to strike if his wooden sword failed again. With everything unleashed in one final blow, the blade pierced upward in a decisive, full-force attack. Len launched a decisive blow, his blade piercing the great wolven's head in one clean strike. Panting from exhaustion, he watched as his sword absorbed the creature's magic stone, changing form. Though victorious, Len's body failed him. He collapsed, unable to move, whispering silent thoughts to his parents. From the shadows of the forest, riders emerged. Len's hazy vision caught approaching figures drawn by the battle's cry. A cavalry unit surrounded the fallen beast. One rider called out. Hoping someone would respond from the scene, knights from Clausel urgently arrived, requesting to take Len inside without formal introductions or delay. One knight carried the unconscious boy. Recognizing him, a shocked woman rushed over, calling out his name. While unconscious, Len clutched a bag tightly. Inside, they discovered a rare plant rondo grass. Emotion overwhelmed her as she embraced Len. Relief and sorrow mixed as tears fell on his shoulder. Far away, the astounding news spread. Len Ashton had slain the chief wolven alone, an unthinkable feat. 2 months passed, rumors spread about a boy in the territory who defeated a D-rank beast. Len Ashton, now recognized for his ability, advanced his sword-summoning skills and gained new magic swords. Through the chief wolven's defeat, Len obtained the magic sword of Bandit, unusual in both form and effect. Ignoring warnings, Len ventured into the forest again, gathering herbs despite his still recovering condition. Later, while riding back, he thanked the knights for their support, acknowledging their timely arrival had saved him. While traveling, Len revealed a bag of treasures once hidden by the chief wolven. These rare materials, sold to the Lord, granted the village a tax exemption and future stability. Back home, Len was praised for his achievements. His father proudly acknowledged the boy's growth. Among the spoils, Len requested the legendary Salacia Pearl, a rare item dropped by the beast. Finally, he received the treasured bracelet, granting him permission to wear it openly with pride. Grateful voices surrounded Len, praising his courage and the risks he took to protect others. At last, peace returned to the nameless village, bringing calm after a long period of unrest. In quiet routines, Len resumed daily life, helping with chores while villagers embraced the restored normalcy. While working outside, he spotted a girl by the tree. She wasn't someone from the village. With a gentle smile, the mysterious girl introduced herself. Her name was Licia, and she sought Len. Len confirmed his name, though something about the girl stirred a vague memory deep within him. Licia stepped forward with a confident smile. Their unexpected meeting marked a turning point. As they stood beneath the tree, fate quietly shifted, signaling the beginning of an entirely new chapter. Under the blooming tree, Len met a mysterious woman who called his name with calm certainty. Her gentle smile carried familiarity, as though she had long awaited this destined encounter between them. Drawing 2 swords effortlessly, Licia's expression shifted from warmth to focus, her stance hinting at hidden strength. Len hesitated, confused by her confidence. Questions filled his mind, yet her gaze allowed no retreat. In an instant, Licia advanced with fierce precision, her blade cutting through the air to test his resolve. Then Len blocked the strike just in time, stunned by her speed and the strength behind it. Before he could react, Licia's blades whirled, overwhelming multiple opponents and leaving them scrambling to defend. She acknowledged his effort with a smile, impressed by how well he adapted under pressure. Len questioned the sudden sparring. Licia reassured him, revealing the blades were dulled for safety. As their swords clashed again, she proposed stopping the match before either of them got truly hurt. Len stepped in swiftly, determined to bring their match to a decisive conclusion without delay. In one fluid motion, he pinned Licia to the ground, claiming a narrow, hard-earned victory. Their hands touched briefly. She froze, eyes wide, stunned by the unexpected closeness and gesture. Startled, she pushed him away, shouting in frustration. Len stumbled back, confused by her reaction. Ignoring the chaos, then Licia stood again, sword raised. Her resolve remained strong until soldiers called her back. Len stood frozen as vice. Sama approached with his knights, arriving unexpectedly on horseback. Before anyone could respond, a noble girl stepped forward and calmly requested to explain the situation. Raising a sealed letter, she declared herself her father's envoy. Carrying a message for the Ashton family, she praised their recent victory and revealed her father's trust in Len's promising future. Finally, she introduced herself as Licia Clausel, revealing her role as the renowned scientist of White. Then Len stood in shock, holding Licia's unconscious body as a wave of dread filled the room. Later, Vice reprimanded Licia for moving alone, while Len casually deflected the situation. Internally, Len recognized her as the girl destined to die in the original game scenario. Despite the confusion, the group gathered peacefully, sharing tea while Len questioned how events had shifted so drastically. In the game, Licia was strong, untouchable, and never romanceable, known to players as the unconquerable heroine. Licia arrived unannounced, her curiosity piqued by tales of Len's battle prowess. Sparring confirmed it. A long journey had brought her to the remote frontier village. Len was left speechless. He never imagined the feudal lord's daughter would come just to evaluate him personally. Modest in tone, Len confessed the victory belonged more to his father than himself. Yet Licia saw something rare: honesty and restraint. She invited him to Clausel, determined to test him again. Thoughts lingered after the match. She trained hard and seemed to genuinely enjoy sword practice. He politely declined her offer, preferring to stay. She sensed hesitation and questioned his intent, flustered by her words. He explained his reason: protecting the village and his father mattered most. Dinner passed quietly, yet tension and reflection remained. Moonlight blanketed the home with quiet resolve. The next morning, a calm routine resumed. He fed the horses, yet couldn't ignore the sword's weight. Len stepped outside, expecting a quiet moment, only to find himself facing physical chores again. Before he could complain, Licia arrived with a sword, confidently announcing she had full permission. Kneeling beside his own sword, Len hesitated. Refusing to fight seemed easy until she made a threat. With a forced smile, Len picked up his sword, pretending he was simply in the mood. Licia made her conditions clear: if she won, he would follow her to Clausel and explain everything. Then Len stood uncertain, facing Licia in a friendly but tense duel. Her terms left no escape. With a bright smile, Licia charged forward. Len tightened his grip and raised both swords. Their blades clashed as Licia launched swift, relentless strikes. Len responded with quick, focused defense. Caught off guard, Len blocked instinctively. Licia questioned his skill, still driven by determination to win. Even as the scientist, Licia couldn't bear losing. She struck again, forcing Len to the ground. Licia launched a fierce counterattack, kicking Len backward. He questioned her reason for bringing titles into battle. As she charged again, Licia explained her strength: swordsmanship, physical skill, and sacred magic made her formidable. The frustration of potentially losing was overwhelming. She poured her emotion into a powerful forward assault. Declaring she'd get serious, Licia pushed forward with full strength, determined to defeat him this time. Len noticed her speed and power had surged. Her sacred magic had activated, amplifying all her abilities. Licia's spinning attack blended sacred magic, swordsmanship, and agility, displaying the full extent of her power. Len could barely keep up, acknowledging how strong she became when fully focused and relentless. He questioned her delay in using magic. She explained Weiss's rules and her hesitation without permission. Still midair, Licia pressed on with fierce resolve, ready to finish the duel decisively. Determined not to lose, Len raised his blade and prepared to counter with equal strength. Len sharpened his focus as Licia's movements became more predictable. Their swords clashed in rapid rhythm. Although he remembered her strength from the past, she had clearly grown much stronger since then. Len's blade stopped just before striking. Licia froze, caught off guard by his precise control and speed. Licia stumbled back, shocked. Len didn't press the attack, holding his stance while she processed what happened. In a sudden shift, Len spun under her guard, sweeping her off balance with swift precision. Then Licia fell hard onto the grass, the moon above her spinning, her chest rising with shock. He stood firm, gaze locked on her. Calmly, he declared his victory without triumph or cruelty. Eyes wide, Licia stared up, disbelief washing over her. She had never imagined such a defeat. But as Len lowered his sword, she rose, determination burning. Her body refused to give in, tears forming. Licia steadied herself. She clenched her fist, raised her blade, and stood tall again. A man praised Len's skill with calm applause, acknowledging the difficulty of defeating Licia and her magic. He spoke with recognition, noting Len's training and past victory against a powerful beast, admiring his growth. Standing under the moonlight, he turned to Licia, reminding her of the strength Len had displayed. Licia, lowering her gaze, accepted his words and admitted her awareness of how far behind she was. Despite the loss, she thanked Len sincerely, recognizing the duel as a valuable experience she would carry forward. Then Licia quietly excused herself to rest, and Len, still processing the match, returned her parting words. The older knight approached Len, apologizing for the situation and expressing gratitude for the hospitality they received. He explained that Licia had grown too confident, and the match served as a humbling reminder. Although he wished to stay longer for further training, their group needed to depart the next morning. He revealed Licia's greater role negotiating with her father and helping restore peace across nearby troubled villages. Licia's achievements were remarkable. having mastered both the sword and scholarship at an elite academy. Though Len once viewed her as overconfident, then he began to see her deeper sincerity and strength. A memory struck him, an ominous scene from the game's future where tragedy had already unfolded. He realized that her past wasn't well documented in the game, making this early meeting unexpected. As dawn broke over the quiet village, the peaceful morning stood in contrast to his unease. Licia lay awake through the night, frustration building as doubts refused to let her rest. Determined, she poured her thoughts onto paper, composing a personal message before their morning departure, alongside a formal letter of thanks. Then she decided to invite Len to Clausel herself. However, upon reading her note, Weiss gently pointed out the emotional tone it unintentionally carried. Realization struck her as he described it. Her words read less like an invitation and more like a love letter. Licia defended her intentions, insisting her admiration came from genuine respect for the boy's talents. Despite her clarification, Weiss explained the tone still resembled that of someone infatuated and emotional. Quoting directly from her note, he listed phrases filled with praise and heartfelt urgency. She tried once more to explain her enthusiasm, claiming any skilled warrior would inspire such desire to improve. Reading it again, Licia finally accepted the truth. Her words echoed more like affection than formal invitation. While crouched in regret, Licia blamed her inexperience with personal letters for how poorly it turned out. Morning arrived, and the traveling party gathered at the village edge, preparing for their quiet departure. Though her farewell followed a dramatic clash, she left without fanfare, riding ahead with lowered gaze. As the wind picked up, the letter she meant to discard slipped from her bag unnoticed. Unaware of its escape, she continued on, never realizing the letter was now lost behind her. Then he examined the demon's sword of banditry, realizing he hadn't tested its ability yet. Spotting a bird, he threw the blade, which struck midair and caused the bird to jolt. A feather materialized in his hand, proof that the weapon had indeed stolen something from the target. Before he could process the success, another item appeared unexpected, old paper carried by birds fluttering away. Upon opening it, he discovered a heartfelt letter, its words unfamiliar yet personal, causing him to pause. Len found a letter lying quietly in the woods, its elegant parchment suggesting important intent. He wondered if the message was from the girl he knew, recalling her distant gaze. As he tried to process the situation, distant sounds of hooves broke through the silent forest path. He turned sharply to see a group of knights approaching, clearly not part of Weiss Sama's escort. Recognizing the unfamiliar crest on their banner, Len tightened his grip on the letter, bracing for trouble. Len noticed the approaching knights bore a crest unfamiliar to him, clearly distinct from Clausel's emblem. An armored rider halted before him, the others forming a loose circle as tension filled the forest. Suddenly, the lead horse reared up violently, its rider gripping the reins while keeping sharp eyes on Len rather than attack. The knight questioned Len's identity, seeking confirmation of his connection to the Ashton domain. Without hostility, the knight revealed their purpose. They were envoys sent to deliver a message from Viscount Givens. Although confused by the mention of Viscount Givens, Len realized these nobles held higher authority than his baron. He led the knights to his family's estate, where their unexpected arrival drew the attention of everyone present. Inside, the knight formally met with Len's bedridden father and the household, establishing the visit's purpose. The officer surprised Len with a message directly from the Viscount, offering him a position under his command. Before he could respond, another group asserted their claim, revealing Len had already been invited elsewhere first. The knight from Viscount Givens remained calm, asserting that Len hadn't accepted any offer yet, leaving the choice open. In response, the Clausel representative reminded him that the village fell under their domain and demanded prior consultation. Acknowledging the point, the visiting knight accepted the rebuke with composed grace and agreed to follow proper channels next time. With a parting promise to return, the envoy and his group rode off, leaving the air thick with uncertainty. Later, Len's father concluded the visit was a political move to absorb their village amid growing factional tension. Acknowledging the truth, one of the knights admitted that the political tension they witnessed stemmed from factional conflict. Len reflected on the growing power divide, recalling that the Leomel Empire's nobles were aligned with one of three factions. The Imperial faction, proud and loyal to the Lion King's legacy, believed rule should stay within the royal family. Anather, the hero faction, was composed of noble houses descended from heroes who once vanquished the Demon King. Supporters of the hero faction, including Viscount Givens, aimed to weaken imperial control and promote broader equality within the empire. The final political group, known as the neutral faction, included those who avoided conflict and respected both sides. Len questioned whether it was truly so easy for a village to change domains under another noble. Speculation grew as they discussed hidden motives behind targeting a minor village hinting at strategic interest in the Clausel family. Despite wishing to avoid involvement, Len realized they might already be caught in a larger political scheme. Unsure of Viscount Given's true intentions, he decided it was best to remain cautious moving forward. Len read through the letter and questioned whether the cited lack of military strength referred to the recent Wolven attack. His father clarified that the Ashton family historically maintained strong forces, and the incident itself was a rare exception. Reflecting on earlier advice, Len recalled that feudal lords could face consequences if monster damage became recurrent. This raised concerns that the Clausel family might be held responsible if neighboring areas reported serious destruction. Based on the wording and timing, Len began to suspect that Viscount Givens was exploiting this issue to pressure Clausel. Len proposed that Viscount Givens might be exploiting the recent chaos to undermine Baron Clausel's reputation. He speculated that Givens could offer protection while using the accusation as leverage to pull the Baron into his faction. The group considered the worst-case scenario that everything had been orchestrated in advance through long-term manipulation. A darker possibility emerged. The Chief Wolven incident itself might have been part of Viscount Givens' strategy. One of them hesitated at the idea, unsure if the Viscount would truly go as far as releasing a monster. Although Len admitted he lacked evidence, he believed the theory explained the recent events too well. The armored knight praised Len's deduction, revealing that the Baron himself had similar concerns regarding Givens' motives. Despite the speculation, Len emphasized that everything was conjecture and warned everyone to stay cautious moving forward. With urgency, the knight promised to inform the Baron and bolster defenses while the injured man resolved to rise again. As Len watched their departure, he reflected on how his new path might force him to confront his former allies. Though uncertain of his suspicions, Len shared his theory, admitting he lacked solid proof but sensed intent. His concerns, surprisingly accurate, earned recognition. And others revealed the Baron himself had similar doubts. Despite being speculative, Len stressed the need for caution, urging everyone to remain vigilant against threats. His warning prompted swift agreement. A messenger would inform the Baron, and others prepared to act accordingly. Riding away with resolve, Len accepted the looming conflict, knowing former allies might soon become enemies. While calmly reading, the girl informed him the madam was with Rig Dono elsewhere. Shocked by her unexpected presence, the boy froze, completely caught off guard. Then she scolded him sharply for yelling so suddenly, clearly irritated by the noise. Ignoring his question, she confidently declared she came because he wouldn't visit Claus. Licia demonstrated the use of a magical shower device, astonishing Len with its modern functionality. She explained that the device could pull water from the crystal orb, eliminating the need for wells or rivers. Although Len voiced concern about its value, Licia clarified it was an old tool she had repaired. Shifting the conversation, she brought up an incident involving Viscount Givens and the difficulties in confronting powerful nobles. Licia calmly reflected on the legacy of saints, noting that without true achievement, the title held no weight. Len reflected on the legacy of great heroes before Licia asked him to visit her father. Inside a quiet room, she placed her hands over the unconscious man and began healing him. The man sat up moments later, expressing gratitude for her efforts as Len looked on in surprise. After they left the room, Len realized she had healed him in the past without telling him. Suddenly, outside in the snow, Licia launched into a training duel, forcing Len to defend with full focus. Len noticed Licia's movements had become sharper, realizing she had trained intensely in a short time. During the duel, she stumbled unexpectedly, and he instinctively caught her before she could fall. Surprised by the close moment, she paused as he calmly asked if she was all right. Despite her exhaustion, Licia was shocked that Len hadn't shown the slightest sign of fatigue. Even while panting, she smiled faintly, admitting that crossing swords with him was her most enjoyable time. As snow continued falling, Licia promised a rematch at dawn, determined not to lose next time. Over the following days, she remained in the village, training and studying together with Len. After their time together, she departed with her escort, leaving Len uncertain about her return. Seasons shifted, and with spring's arrival, new events began to stir in the quiet countryside. By then, the man Licia had healed had fully recovered. Chatting with Len as they carried supplies, a group of knights arrived unexpectedly, catching Len and the others off guard with their presence. One of the knights, speaking with authority, announced he came on behalf of Viscount Givens. He claimed to bring favorable news specifically directed at Len, though the atmosphere felt increasingly tense. The knight offered an invitation to a prestigious imperial academy, promising support for Len's special enrollment. Everyone stood in stunned silence, processing the surprising proposal and unsure of what consequences might follow. The offer to place Len in the elite class shocked everyone, as even regular admission was difficult. With powerful political connections backing the invitation, the knight assured them it was a rare opportunity. Len calmly refused, stating he had no intention of leaving the village or pursuing nobility. His refusal was firm, fueled by the knowledge that the academy would bring him closer to a future he feared. Looking up at the knight, Len explained that the life he lived now already gave him purpose and fulfillment. The knight challenged Len's guardian, questioning why he wouldn't wish for his son to become nobility. Despite the emotional pressure, the man responded that what mattered most was Len's own will. Offended by the refusal, the knight declared they would deliver the rejection message themselves and turn cold. As he walked away, the knight expressed disappointment, leaving Len and his guardian standing in silence. A few days later, after the envoy had departed, Len quietly reflected on the choice he had made. Licia returned once again, but this time she appeared exhausted and was carried in someone's arms. Len watched with surprise as she arrived unexpectedly for a third visit, clearly unwell. Inside the house, she lay in bed while a knight explained that her condition worsened just days ago. When Len asked for details, he was told it was a rare illness triggered by high magical power. Though not contagious, the disease was unpredictable and dangerous, with symptoms that could strike without any warning. Then Licia's high fever posed serious risk, and she was advised to rest for at least several weeks. After a few days passed, her condition stabilized, and Len was invited to see her. He entered her room and noticed her cheeks were still flushed with lingering heat. With a quiet voice, Licia apologized, expressing guilt for falling ill so soon after arriving. Though she blamed herself for troubling others, Len insisted she hadn't done anything wrong and urged her not to bow. Licia explained that the purpose of her journey was to demonstrate loyalty to the crown. Despite her quiet nature, she believed that visiting the villages as the saint would send a strong message. However, her own weakness frustrated her, and she clenched her hands in silent self-blame. She continued criticizing herself, feeling like nothing she did had succeeded, only causing inconvenience to others. Tears welled up as she confessed that, in her current state, she was dishonoring even her late mother's memory. Licia recalled how her mother once embraced her warmly, celebrating the prophecy of her sacred birth. Though she often stared at her mother's portrait in the hallway, she had never heard her voice or felt her presence. Whenever she wore the old ceremonial outfit, she imagined her mother's encouragement, drawn from memories she never truly owned. Despite Len's support and the expectations around her, her efforts constantly fell short, leaving her burdened by silent disappointment. Resolving to move forward, Licia quietly decided never to return to that place of hollow comfort again. Licia, with a steady gaze, declared that this visit would be her final one. She reminded Len of the sacrifices his family made, rejecting even prestigious offers to remain loyal. With sincere regret, she apologized for troubling his household multiple times, her expression filled with quiet remorse. Placing her hand to her chest, she expressed deep gratitude for his support, while Len realized her intentions were pure. Yet beneath his calm face, Len acknowledged the truth: the one hiding secrets all along was actually himself. Len stood in silence. Licia sat quietly near the bed, and the dress hung between them. Licia quietly sat on the bed, her expression calm yet weighed down by unspoken decisions. She mentioned her intent to write a letter to her father, revealing thoughts she had long delayed. Len, standing nearby, offered his own supplies without hesitation, revealing that the room she borrowed was his. Grateful but regretful, Licia acknowledged the trouble she had caused, while Len dismissed her concern with quiet composure. Before she left, Len politely asked her to bring a fire-based magic tool next time. If convenient, Len clarified that his request was only meant for her next visit, not a demand. Licia, visibly frustrated, reminded him that she had said not to come again to avoid trouble. He calmly pointed out that suddenly confronting someone would naturally cause hesitation. Regardless of the circumstances, offering a solution, Len proposed future meetings be limited to the village and only with advance notice. With a gentle smile, he assured her they could talk again once she had recovered fully. After leaving the room, Len covered his face, overwhelmed by his own awkward behavior and remarks. Left behind in silence, Licia stared at the door, questioning if his invitation was truly sincere. She sat quietly, realizing her headache had faded at some point, yet her thoughts remained unsettled. Rising from bed, she remembered the letter to her father and searched for the ink Len mentioned. Opening the small box, she discovered a mysterious paper inside, something unexpected that caught her attention. Licia read the letter aloud, realizing it was filled with words praising strength, dignity, and courage. A vivid memory of an elder's voice echoed in her mind, calling it nothing less than a love letter. Her hands trembled as she clutched the paper, trying to comprehend how it ended up in Len's room. She panicked, convinced he must have read it, and blamed herself for letting it fall into his hands. Desperately, she denied any feelings for him, though her flustered words betrayed a deeper admiration she couldn't fully hide. Still clutching the letter, Lycia sat on the floor, confused by her own emotions. Frustrated, she questioned why the letter was kept so carefully, wondering if he had meant to treasure it. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling, silently asking what Len truly thought after reading it. The next day, knights and workers gathered, having agreed to assist with repairs and village tasks on her request. With duties divided, Len joined the repair team while Lycia left to fetch medicine for someone in need. While the workers discussed building supplies near the field, Lycia quietly watched everything unfold from her window. The group remained hopeful that with a bit more rest, she would recover and return to normal life. As clouds gathered above the mountains, rainfall steadily intensified, soaking the forest and surrounding hills. During work, Len and the others paused due to the downpour, deciding to take a brief rest nearby. Amid the rainfall, Len suddenly noticed a strange burnt smell in the air, triggering a quiet sense of unease. As Len mentioned the scent of burning, he suddenly realized it was coming from the direction of the house. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the manor, only to see it fully engulfed in roaring flames. Shock gripped him as he saw the inferno consuming everything, thick smoke spiraling violently into the sky. While running closer, Len discovered the bodies of knights collapsed on the ground, lifeless, and brutally struck down. Kneeling beside one, he saw the vicious wounds and concluded it was the horrifying work of a demon. Realizing Lycia was still inside the blazing manor, Len gritted his teeth and rushed straight into the fire. Inside, he found more fallen knights, confirming the horrifying truth that the defenders had all been wiped out. As he advanced through the smoke, a cloaked figure with a twisted beast stood waiting in the corridor. The enemy was no ordinary foe. It commanded two monstrous creatures with wings and terrifying strength. Recognizing the threat, Len identified one as a man-eater, a powerful D-rank demon capable of devastating destruction. Lycia lay unconscious amid the flames as Len charged forward, calling out to her desperately. Confronting the cloaked enemy, Len stood his ground, demanding the intruder step away from her immediately. Without warning, the creature lashed out, releasing a wave of energy that distorted Len's senses. Disoriented and weakened, then he fell to his knees, realizing he could no longer steady his body. Suddenly, a familiar scent drifted past him, the fragrance from the ornate jar Lycia had once held. The hooded figure released a powerful fragrance, strong enough to subdue even a dragon for days. Struggling to stay conscious, the boy knelt beside the unconscious girl, overwhelmed by the spreading scent. His fingers twitched as his vision blurred, flames crackled around him while his awareness slipped away. Everything vanished into darkness, and silence replaced the chaos as his body lost strength completely. Moments later, the clatter of wooden wheels stirred faint consciousness. He was now aboard a moving carriage. Len abruptly awoke on rough straw, wrists and ankles tightly bound in heavy iron restraints. Lycia lay unconscious nearby, her delicate frame showing signs of being similarly chained and mistreated. He quickly crawled over to check her condition, ignoring his own pain and the cold floor beneath. Relief passed through him as her chest rose faintly, a fragile sign she was still breathing. Outside the wooden cart, a cloaked figure warned them to stay silent and endure a few more days. Then Len clenched his fists as he realized they had been traveling for 4 days without pause. The cart creaked along the mountain path, surrounded by steep cliffs and thick forest mist. Far below, an endless valley stretched out beneath the towering mountains, confirming how far they'd been taken. He stared at their captor's back, demanding to know the reason behind their abduction. Unfazed, the hooded figure muttered that their enemy was a skilled summoner controlling 2 vicious D-rank beasts. Len noticed Lycia's condition worsening, her breathing shallow and body trembling on the straw-covered floor. Realizing her life was in danger, he clenched his fists and swore not to lose her here. No matter the cost, he vowed to defy fate and drag her out of captivity alive. Len wandered through a dream, its weight pressing down as distant memories stirred inside him. He saw himself, split and silent, standing in the void of memory. This was the dream of Len Ashton. In the past, fear kept him frozen. Unable to gather herbs, he watched helplessly as his father died after fighting a monster. His hesitation cost a life. The village, left unprotected after his father's death, was overrun. Flames devoured homes, and many innocent lives were lost during the attack. Len found his mother lying wounded among the ruins. He clutched her weak body, overwhelmed by regret. He had promised to protect her, but failed. In the aftermath of the attack, Len held his wounded mother close, powerless to save her. Amid the ruins, a woman appeared, accompanied by armored knights. With calm precision, the woman raised her hands, her presence commanding attention in the silence. She knelt beside Len and his mother, beginning a ritual. Her gentle movements radiated warmth and light. To Len, she seemed like a saint descended to earth. Bound in chains, Len stared at the unconscious girl before him. Her identity was clear. She was the one from his past, now riding through the forest in a wagon. Len wondered if their meeting had truly been fate. Len sat quietly in the wagon, uncertain why he dreamed of a past that never happened. That thought turned darker. A vision surfaced him standing over a lifeless body, hand stained with death. Why would he take a life if their connection wasn't hostile? Doubt crept in. Maybe there had been a reason, one buried deep within memory before he could reflect further. The wagon jolted and Lycia stirred beside him, both captives. Now Len and Lycia lay shackled on the floor. Len pleaded for the chains to be loosened, but the hooded figure dismissed him coldly, demanding he solve his own problems alone and restrained. The hooded figure reminded Len that they had already provided potions and herbs for days. There would be no further kindness. With the lid open, the figure warned Len not to shout. No one outside would hear the magical tools blocked all sound except to the captor. Outside, night settled over the forest. As the figure rested by the fire, Len worked in secret, using a metal pin to unlock his restraints. Finally free, he moved to Licia's side, carefully offering her water from the shared canteen. His hands trembled as he tilted it toward her lips. A single drop slid down her face. Though unconscious, Lycia's lips parted slightly. She was still alive, and that was enough to give Len hope. Lycia let out a faint sound. Realizing her strength was nearing its limit, Len knew they had to escape that night or lose their chance. Under the full moon's silent gaze, the world lay still. Len steeled himself for what had to come. He glanced at the captor sitting near the campfire, then turned his focus inward. No more hesitation. The moment had arrived. Chains glowed as Len summoned the iron demon sword. With one strike, the enchanted blade shattered his restraints. The sword's edge was sharper than expected. Cutting through the chains was effortless. Confident in its power, Len pierced the wagon wall, testing their path to freedom. While the captor remained distracted near the fire, Len prepared Lycia and slipped quietly out of the wagon. Suddenly, monstrous flying beast launched an attack from above. Len froze, eyes wide, as danger closed in. One of the creatures descended rapidly, flames trailing from its mouth. Len shielded Lycia as debris rained around them. A devastating blast shattered the wagon into fragments. The cloaked captor and the beast were both caught in the explosion. In the chaos, Len tightened his grip around Lycia and struck back with a sweeping sword slash. Dust swirled violently, as the power of his strike carved through the air, protecting them. Caught off guard by the sudden sword attack, the captor shouted in disbelief, demanding to know where Len got his weapon. Len had severed the rope binding the horse to the tree. A magical charm glowed as it activated, reacting to the escape attempt. Summoning a second blade, the wooden demon sword, Len took a defensive stance. With Lycia in one arm, he fought off the incoming creatures, striking with swift precision. Nature itself responded. Vines burst forth, wrapping tightly around the enemy beast and the robed figure, pinning them in place. Lycia in his arms, Len charged toward the horse. The captor screamed in frustration and cast another spell. Len revealed the thief's demon sword, its sharp blade glowing as he readied himself to counterattack. Riding with Lycia, he narrowly avoided the enemy's magic blast. The captor, entangled in vines, looked shocked. The enemy's staff vanished without explanation. Panic flashed across his hidden face as he demanded an answer. Without delay, Len urged the horse forward, clutching Lycia tightly. Behind them, a winged beast took flight in pursuit. Just as escape seemed possible, a monster lunged at them. Its gaping jaws rushed toward Len and Lycia from above. A massive black creature exploded from the trees, scales ripping through the air like shrapnel. Len twisted in his saddle, protecting the girl while his horse galloped beneath the creature's outstretched claws. Fangs snapped inches away, but they escaped into the forest, the creature's roar trailing behind them. From the settling smoke, a cloaked figure stepped forward, watching the fleeing horse with narrowed eyes. Dark energy surged from his arms as he summoned beasts from the forest with a single command. A chaotic stampede shook the forest as wild beasts and fanged creatures charged in frenzy. Panic spread. Len shielded Lycia, quickly realizing that someone had gathered the forest monsters in one massive wave. Without hesitation, he summoned his iron demon sword, the air crackling as power surged into his grip. Monsters lunged from every direction, but Len struck with overwhelming force, sending enemies flying in all directions. With Lycia secured in one arm and sword in the other, Len led their escape through the shattered horde. A sudden quake split the path as their horse galloped forward, narrowly dodging falling debris and enraged beasts. Without hesitation, Len turned and slashed through the air, shielding Lycia from the attack closing in behind. A monstrous creature unleashed a stream of flames, forcing them to veer aside and avoid the blast zone. They raced through the dense forest, chased by shadows, until the moonlit horizon marked their narrow escape. Far away in the northern city of Crousel, Lycia's father, Lord Lezard, received the news in disbelief. Vice, the old knight, bowed in shame. He accepted full blame for failing to protect Licia's side. Despite his guilt, he pleaded to continue the search, vowing to rescue her at any cost. Lezard stood in silence, acknowledging Vice's loyalty. He believed Licia had ordered the retreat for his safety. Resolving to act, Lezard slammed his hand down. He declared it was time to alert the capital, before plans could be set in motion. A messenger interrupted. Officials from the Empire had already arrived. Envoy arrived at Clausel Manor bearing official orders from the Minister of Justice, unsettling Lord Lezard. He presented a decree accusing Clausel's territory of spreading monster threats to neighboring lands, citing administrative failure. Through the quiet wilderness, Len guided the horse steadily, holding Licia close to shield her from the cold. The mountains loomed in the distance, a silent witness to their escape. Under the shade of trees, Len prepared a remedy with practiced care. Though hesitant, Licia accepted the bowl. She stared at the bitter mixture, her hands trembling slightly. Len remained still, watching her silently, placing his trust in her courage to endure. She drank slowly, grimacing at the taste. The bitterness made her cough, but she did not stop. Relieved, Licia drank deeply from the flask Len offered. Her breathing slowed and color returned to her cheeks. Water rushed around their legs as Len carried Licia across the shallow river. Fields opened before them as the mountains stood tall behind. Licia sat upright on horseback, visibly stronger. Her fever had subsided, and she glanced at Len with quiet curiosity. Recalling his journey, Len spoke of a village passed 3 days earlier. There he traded hunted materials for medicine and supplies. Gratitude filled Licia's eyes as she looked at him. Her words were brief but sincere. Len responded with a calm smile, unfazed, asking nothing in return for his care. While overlooking distant peaks, Licia realized they'd crossed into the edge of the Givenesh territory. Jagged peaks of the Baldal mountain range pierced the clouds. Towering and sharp, the mountains marked the edge of the known world, stirring awe in both travelers as they stared silently. From the mountain's silhouette, Licia identified their position with confidence. Curious about their path, Len asked about the distance to Clausel. Licia estimated 4 days, though she insisted they first confirm the safety of Len's family before proceeding further. With a reassuring tone, Len explained that his family hadn't been home that day. He believed they had likely found refuge by now, his voice calm and unwavering in trust. Though doubt lingered in Licia's expression, Len offered another warm smile. From atop the ridge, Len and Licia looked over the town below. As night fell, rain began to pour. They sought refuge under a rocky outcrop. Len quickly gathered dry twigs and ignited a fire, preparing for the cold, wet night ahead. A large bird-like creature lay beside the fire. Licia stared in surprise, curious how Len captured it. Calmly, he explained his simple trap. Licia's attention shifted to Len's sword. Suspicion grew as she recalled its strange power. Though asked directly, Len evaded the question, keeping the nature of his weapon a secret. Later, Licia uncovered a mysterious pendant from her belongings. Quietly, she studied it in her hand. Licia examined the pendant closely, suspecting it to be a broken magical tool. Len admitted he had taken it while escaping from a mage who used beasts as weapons. He recalled the moment they were imprisoned in a wagon, the silence unnatural. Contemplating its purpose, Licia considered that it might serve as proof one day. Meanwhile, Len checked the food grilling over the fire, estimating it was ready to eat. The meal was simple skewered meat seasoned only lightly. Len apologized for its appearance. Without a word, Licia accepted the food. She took a small bite, her eyes watching Len briefly before focusing again on the quiet flame between them. After a hesitant first bite, Licia instinctively covered her mouth. A gentle smile spread across Licia's face. She quietly expressed that the food tasted good. Len's expression brightened, relieved and proud that his efforts had brought her comfort. Continuing their journey, the two passed ruined settlements, eventually finding rest near a forest beside a stream. Len washed their clothes while Licia sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket. He hung her dress to dry, careful with each fold, mindful of her modesty. Noticing a mark on Licia's cheek, Len quietly reached forward with care. He gently wiped away the dirt, catching her by surprise but never breaking the calm between them. Len watched Licia closely, speaking calmly with a hopeful tone. He wished for her full recovery, caught off guard by his words. Licia's heartbeat quickened, her cheeks remained red. Drawing Len's concern, he gently placed a hand on her forehead to check her temperature. She froze, eyes wide open. Quickly pulling away, Licia insisted she was fine. Her expression betrayed nervousness as she avoided his gaze. Later that night, she lay in bed, lost in thought. Clutching a letter, her mind replayed every word. No, on the rocky shore, Len approached Licia, who sat quietly wrapped in a blanket, her expression unreadable under the fading light. She turned her head, strands of hair brushing her cheek, and looked at him with sharp, questioning eyes. A thought had been troubling her for some time. Holding a folded piece of paper, Licia's hands trembled slightly. Len's eyes widened as he realized what she had found, something he never meant to reveal. From beside her, a small chest lay open, filled with old letters and keepsakes carefully stored. Len hesitated, words caught in his throat as Licia demanded answers. She wasn't angry, only seeking truth. Inside the quiet room, Licia held a box filled with shining stones, questioning Len's strange habit of collecting them. Her expression softened as she compared him to his father, who once shared the same fascination with magic stones. Later, Len sat alone, gazing at the chest. He wondered if his interest appeared childish or unusual to others. Memories resurfaced as he stared at the stones floating gently before him. Across the room, Licia watched silently, waiting for his response. He finally understood his own reason. From the moment he first saw her, curiosity had taken root, shaping every choice since. Licia's eyes widened as Len's quiet confession echoed in her mind, leaving her frozen in disbelief. When he repeated his words with calm honesty, she could only stare, unsure how to respond to his sudden sincerity. Flustered, she tried to hide her embarrassment, insisting it wasn't strange while granting him freedom to act as he wished. Len turned thoughtful again, analyzing his fascination with magical stones and their origins, searching for meaning behind his actions. By the riverside, he finally approached her once more, apologizing softly. Despite his awkwardness, his gaze carried quiet resolve. Licia looked down, unsure whether to scold or smile, realizing that his curiosity had always been genuine. Licia's voice trembled as she shouted her reply, trying to hide her rising emotions behind firm words. Her hands tightened around her cloak while thoughts raced. Being told such things left her uncertain and flustered. Len remained still, quietly listening as she hesitated. Her next words came out softer, almost unsure, rather than resisting. She accepted the moment, turning slightly. She spoke again, her tone more settled, as if giving in finally. She met his gaze directly. With a determined expression, Licia made her request clear he should call her by name. Len stood silently as the forest wind settled. Though words had been spoken, their meaning still escaped him. Beyond the trees, a quiet village came into view, peaceful and distant. It offered no answers, only the next step. Upon arrival, Len approached an elder. Though she had no healing herbs to offer, she gave them feed instead. The beast rested quietly at his feet. With supplies in hand, Len explained their journey lacked a set destination. Licia remained quiet atop the horse, observing everything without a word. A local woman pointed them toward a town called Clausel. She mentioned it as a place adventurers often visited, somewhere to start, perhaps. Licia turned, her voice calm but firm. She shared rumors of the Clausel noble being punished soon. The news shocked everyone present. Confusion spread quickly as questions poured in. How could such a thing be happening? Although she didn't know the full story, the villager admitted she'd only heard fragments of what was coming. Some claimed the noble had unleashed monsters on another territory. Len's eyes widened, realizing the situation was far more dangerous than expected. Without delay, the group took off across the plains. Len and Licia rode hard, chasing answers before conflict reached them. Licia raised her voice in disbelief, rejecting the accusation that her father had anything to do with summoning monsters. Her frustration grew. To her, the entire claim sounded absurd. No one reasonable could accept it without doubt. Far to the north, the city of Clausel came into view, surrounded by mountains and guarded by silence. A carriage passed through its busy streets. Onlookers murmured as it came to a halt, curiosity spreading among the crowd. The door opened slowly. A well-dressed man stepped out with purpose. Soldiers flanked him as he was greeted by a knight who confirmed everything was ready. A confident noble laid out his plan, convinced that conquering the region would expand their faction's influence. The older strategist narrowed his eyes, silently calculating the risk behind the young man's ambition and boldness. Surrounded by banners and soldiers, he raised his cane. Reviving the declining power of Leomel was now his mission. With authority, he declared the first step, bringing down the house of Clausel. No one in the room dared object. The towering cathedral loomed over the city, its chimes signaling the beginning of an important trial. An imperial official held up the decorated law book, declaring that judgment would proceed according to the Empire's strict legal code. Rows of citizens filled the grand chamber. Murmurs spread as the audience learned the verdict would be publicly revealed the next morning, coinciding with the legal debate's conclusion. A wave of unease passed through the gallery. The armored man and his companion watched in silence from above, both weighing the risks of the unfolding process. Although the younger man accepted the grim outcome, the older one insisted on escalating the appeal to the capital's divine court. Refusing to give up hope standing from across the chamber, the young man fixed his gaze on the composed elder. Doubt filled his voice as he observed the man's unreadable expression. Sensing defeat was inevitable, the elder leaned back, radiating confidence. Every gesture hinted at careful preparation under the moonlit sky. The young official reflected on the elder's overwhelming presence. Far from the courtroom, in a damp forest shelter, a cloaked figure lay near a fire. Beside them, a horse rested quietly and another person kept watch, alert and uneasy. Contemplating in silence, the watcher realized inaction would seal Clausel's fate. Someone had to intervene soon. Unable to sleep, the boy sat by the fire, thoughts tangled with doubt and urgency. From her bedroll, the cloaked girl responded softly, assuring him she preferred speaking with Len. With morning approaching, she urged immediate departure. They had no time to lose if they wished to return and testify the truth behind the abduction before the trial concluded. Still uncertain, Len wondered how much their words would matter. Without evidence linking the Duke to the scheme, the truth might still be dismissed, though time was limited. The girl agreed. They had to uncover something, anything, to expose the real mastermind. The two travelers pressed forward across wild terrain, passing ancient ruins and narrowing cliffs. They rode in silence through dense forests and rolling hills, the trail winding endlessly through the vast wilderness. Time weighed heavily as they remained distant from all signs of civilization. Eventually, the girl parted the forest branches and whispered that they were nearly there. Hope returned as the boy asked if they were finally safe. She nodded, explaining that Clausel's knights were likely nearby, offering reassurance their efforts had not been in vain. But before they could relax, a figure stepped from the brush ahead. Unseen until now, someone had been watching their approach all along. Startled by movement ahead, both travelers widened their eyes in alarm as a shadow emerged from the path. A knight on horseback revealed himself, smiling with relief. His armor gleamed as he halted before them. Recognition struck instantly. They identified the emblem. This man belonged to the faction they were avoiding. He calmly explained they had been searching for the pair under orders. Their cooperation was expected. Before a response could form, mounted soldiers surrounded them from all directions, sealing every escape route. The armored knight proposed they leave immediately, claiming they would escort the pair to a safe place. Neither responded right away. The tension between them grew, uncertainty shadowing their expressions. Breaking the silence, the girl turned toward Len and asked to handle the situation herself. Then he considered the risk but ultimately gave a quiet nod, placing his trust in her decision. As the knight questioned their whispering, she shifted her focus and addressed him directly, voice steady. The girl responded cautiously, stating that their safety depended entirely on how the knight chose to answer. Without waiting further, she revealed a pendant, holding it out with confidence as proof of her claim. The knight examined the object, visibly confused. His narrowed eyes revealed no recognition or reaction. She calmly explained its origin, taken from the bandits who had captured them. The jewel held significance as stolen magical equipment. Though the knight showed little interest, he offered to take it as evidence. His tone remained neutral, but distrust lingered in the air between them. Licia firmly refused to hand over the pendant. She insisted the merchant guild would trace its origin instead. Unconvinced, the knight dismissed the idea. He doubted anyone could identify a single magic item within an empire so vast. Unshaken, Licia explained that the pendant was no ordinary object. It was expensive and unique. With connections to the guild leader, she believed the source could be discovered. She continued calmly, noting that identifying the true source would reveal whether the item was acquired through the captor or a third party. With a steady voice and unwavering gaze, Licia reminded them that someone tried to frame her and Len. The group of knights surrounded Licia and her companion in the forest, waiting for her answer. Silence fell over them as tension hung in the air. One knight stepped forward, requesting custody of the magical item in Licia's possession. He stressed its importance and implied they had the authority to keep it safe. Licia firmly declined. She reminded them this was her family's domain and their jurisdiction held no weight here. The village incident also fell under her household's oversight. Caught off guard, the knight tried to object. However, Licia's glare made it clear she wouldn't tolerate resistance. Turning away, Licia voiced her disdain for knights who couldn't uphold justice. Licia and Len calmly prepared to leave, but the knights remained stationed around them, silently observing. One knight stepped forward, insisting the artifact must be handed over for protection due to its value. Without hesitation, Licia refused, asserting the knights had no authority and reminding them they were in her family's domain. The knight gritted his teeth at the rejection, frustration mounting as he struggled to regain control of the situation. Drawing his sword, he forcefully declared they would be escorted under guard. his tone no longer polite. Hearing Lycia call out, Len stepped forward without hesitation, his expression calm and determined. His hand reached for his weapon. With precise movement, he drew his blade and swiftly deflected the knight's incoming strike, protecting Lycia. Len countered with fluid force, disarming the knight in one motion. His stance remained focused, his defense unwavering. As the knight attempted to react, Len spun with speed and blocked again, leaving his opponent off balance. After subduing the threat, Lycia stepped in, holding a glowing seal. She declared that their interference was enough to draw the Count of Given into court. Thanks to Len's actions, she could now pursue judgment properly. The knight raises his voice, insisting that the pair needs protection for their journey. Offended, the knight blocks their path with a sword. Tension builds as he demands they travel with him, drawing his weapon with force. Len steps forward. With swift precision, he draws his sword and intercepts the knight's strike, breaking the weapon cleanly. The knight charges again. Len counters with skill, pushing the knight back. The woman seizes the moment, channeling magic through her palm, releasing a radiant spell. The burst sends the knight flying. As Len wields a magical wooden sword, vines erupt to bind the remaining guards. The knight commander issued urgent orders as magical vines restrained his soldiers. Realizing the failure, he turned to report the situation himself. Len and Lycia galloped through the forest, evading pursuit, determined. She gripped the reins tightly while he watched their flank. Beneath the glowing moon, two riders dashed across the rugged terrain, chased by unseen enemies through the cold, mountainous night. Knights in full armor surged forward on horseback. Their blades at the ready, they refused to let their targets escape so easily. Len turned his head, heart pounding. No matter how hard they pushed, the armored pursuers remained close, relentless and fast. Lycia leaned over her horse, whispering desperate encouragement. The village lay just beyond the hill. If they could endure a little longer, they might survive. Far ahead, high atop a towering rock formation, a hooded figure sat in silence. Two winged beasts hovered around him. The hooded figure extended his hand with eerie calm, having anticipated their arrival at this very place. A sudden quake shattered the ground. Boulders cracked open as power surged from the cliffside above. Len pulled Lycia close as their horse leapt forward, narrowly avoiding collapsing terrain and falling rock. They plunged into a forest of monstrous plants. Twisted vines, sharp leaves, and spore-covered fungi erupted around them. From within the chaos, unnatural creatures appeared, flowers with eyes, rodents with gaping jaws, and writhing roots. The beast tamer had summoned a living nightmare. Lycia urgently requested a sword, though untrained in combat, she had once used it for fire. Meanwhile, the knights trailing them grew uneasy. The beasts were heading their way unpredictably and aggressively. Too late, they realized the danger. The swarm of rats surged forward, ignoring pleas and consuming all in their path. From atop the cliff, the cloaked summoner observed the carnage without remorse. The knights had simply been in the wrong place. Now surrounded by grotesque flower-eyed monsters and fungal beasts, Len and Lycia faced an impossible choice: surrender or fight through. Surrounded by a swarm of monstrous hornets, Len drew his sword, shielding Lycia from all sides. With one sharp motion, vines burst forth, entangling the airborne creatures and slamming them against the ground. Lycia joined the fray. Her blades slicing through mushroom beasts side by side, they fought without hesitation. Together they advanced, cutting a path through the grotesque forest. Len remarked on her growing strength. Fierce determination lit Lycia's eyes. She struck down a lunging beast, shouting that her training was meant to surpass Len. Len and Lycia charged ahead, slashing through bizarre monsters as their path exploded with light and chaos. Realizing the swarm was endless, Lycia concluded the beast tamer had to be stopped to escape alive. Suddenly, the earth cracked open. A monstrous creature emerged, shaking the ground with its sheer presence. Towering above them, the massive worm-like beast with triple jaws loomed closer, forcing Len to act immediately. He drew a black-bladed sword, pulsing with energy, his iron magic sword ready to confront the true threat. Len faced the monstrous triple-jawed creature, head on, sword raised, its gaping maw threatening to consume everything. A blinding surge of energy erupted as he slashed upward, splitting the beast's towering form in two. Shockwaves blasted the battlefield, sending debris flying. Even Lycia, momentarily stunned, marveled at Len's overwhelming strength. High above, the beast tamer observed silently. His expression shifted as Len's power reached the cliffside. Hair fluttering in the wind, the summoner acknowledged the distant strike. The blade's pressure had reached him. Under the moonlight, a mysterious elf stood in silence, his expression unreadable, cloak swaying in the wind. Len's eyes widened in disbelief. He recognized the figure now revealed. Once hidden in shadows, surrounded by strange flora, Len and Lycia remained still. Questions clouded their thoughts. Why was he here? without hesitation. The elf uttered a command, power surged, the forest obeyed. A battle was inevitable. Dark branches reached across the sky, whispering the name of a feared figure, Yelku. The Beastmaster from atop a gnarled tree, Yelku watched the world below, cloaked in silence and power, known as one of the formidable bosses in the legend of the Seven Heroes. Even under the vast moonlit sky, adventurers crossing the continent could not forget the shadow he cast. As the boy rode into a forest crawling with monstrous creatures, Yelku stood waiting, surrounded by his summoned horde. Once exiled from his homeland for cruel experiments on fellow elves, Yelku now faced Len, the destined challenger. Len questioned how fate brought him to this encounter. As punishment for his crimes against his kin, Yelku's arms bore powerful sealing marks chained tightly. Without the staff's assistance, his dual skills couldn't function, severely weakening his combat capabilities. Len speculated that Yelku's restraint might be linked to someone hired by the prince, seeking a way to remove the magical seal. Licia, riding beside Len through a sea of monsters, urged him to consider how their actions could shift the outcome. Her words struck him. Len, surprised, questioned what she meant by changing their approach. Yelku stood atop a boulder, flanked by two ferocious beasts matching the strength of Shuwolfen. Realizing the threat, Len assessed that their chances of winning would plummet if both monsters attacked. Licia's expression shifted subtly. That confirmation was exactly what she needed to proceed without hesitation. Raising her sword, she reminded Len of her true identity, one who bore the title of the White Saint. In an instant, radiant energy enveloped them, blinding the field as Licia unleashed her sacred power. A wave of brilliance engulfed the area as Len's body reacted instinctively to the sacred light. Yelku's gaze shifted. From afar, he sensed the activation of something unfamiliar, a force surging through Len's weapon. Surrounded on all sides, Len and Licia stood alone within a glowing barrier encircled by monstrous plant creatures. Licia's eyes narrowed with determination. With precise control, she began casting a large-scale sacred formation beneath their feet. The spell expanded instantly, sealing off the hordes in intricate magical lines, dividing the battlefield into secured zones. Plant monsters were launched into the air, torn apart by the holy shockwave bursting from the spell's core. Yelk watched in silence, recognizing the unmistakable aura of divine magic radiating from the battlefield below. As the enemies reeled in confusion, Len and Licia remained composed. Her sword glowed, ready for the next move. From atop their horse, they spotted Yelku's draconic beasts taking flight in retaliation. One of them unleashed a blazing breath. Flames surged toward Len and Licia, roaring with deadly force. Threatening to consume everything in their path, engulfed by dragon fire, Len raised his sword as Licia extended her arm, prepared to resist the flames. Without hesitation, she pushed back the inferno using sacred magic, her focus unwavering despite the blazing heat. A path of purified air split the flames, allowing the dragon to crash helplessly through its own attack. The beast struck down mid-flight, collapsed in agony. Its fall ignited panic among the surrounding monsters. Watching her, Len clenched his fist. With her at his side, he believed they could overcome anything. Flames raged across the battlefield, yet Len and Licia pressed forward as a towering beast emerged from the blaze. Watching the chaos unfold, Yelk released another wave of fire, determined to overwhelm their resistance entirely. Through the burning sky, the two riders charged ahead, refusing to fall back. Their eyes were locked on the enemy for a moment. Time stilled as Len met Yelku's cold stare. Neither flinched. The outcome would be decided now. With both hands firm on his blade, Len struck in unison with Licia's guiding reins. Their will focused as one. A monstrous creature rises from the flames, confronting a man on horseback. Watching from above, a cloaked figure stands poised from the cliff. The cloaked man unleashes a powerful force. Spirits surge through the sky like a summoned army surrounded by spectral flames. The rider and girl press forward. Determined, the man raises his sword, ready to finish the battle in one decisive strike. The two share a silent, intense moment. Their eyes meet, filled with resolve and unspoken understanding. With a swift motion, he launches his attack. The sword gleams as it cuts forward, channeling immense power to end the chaos engulfing them all. A violent blast of force erupted from the ground, sending chunks of rock flying skyward as Licia looked on. Stunned. The explosion's aftermath stretched across the valley, smoke rising under the moonlight while fires consumed the remains of fallen monsters. Through the haze of burning corpses, a lone horse galloped across the battlefield, while Len carried Licia through the devastation. He dropped to his knees, holding her close, heart pounding as he scanned her pale, unconscious face for any sign of movement. Realizing the toll divine magic had taken on her weakened body, Len clenched his fists, silently blaming himself for her collapse. While Len remained beside Licia, a dark presence stepped forward through the smoke, drawing his wary attention. Yahello emerged from the flames, his face veiled and body marked with strange runes pulsing with power. Lifting his hand, he observed the black fluid coating his skin, showing no sign of hesitation. A smirk crept across his face as he raised his voice in mock amusement, clearly relishing the moment. Breaking into unrestrained laughter, Yahello stood triumphantly, his madness echoing across the burning battlefield without fear or remorse. Yahello stepped into a pool of his own blood, realizing its volume came entirely from his body, staring at his dripping hands. He murmured with twisted clarity, acknowledging the seal's release and his suppressed urges. From a distance, Len shielded Licia while watching Yahello kneel, torn between disbelief and the elf's unstable muttering. As Licia stirred faintly in his arms, Len instinctively tightened his grip, unsure what Yahello would do next. With bloodshot eyes wide open, Yahello's expression shifted again. He wasn't finished. He still had someone left to kill. Yahello's fingers curled near his mouth as he reflected on the disturbing pleasure drawn from death itself. Across from him, Len stood protectively in front of Licia, locking eyes with the elf now overtaken by madness. Without warning, the earth ruptured beside Yahello as a monstrous black beast emerged, summoned from deep within the corrupted ground. Holding out a blood-soaked arm, Yahello invoked the creature by name, offering his own flesh to strengthen it. A wicked smile spread across his face as he raised his glowing arm high, ready for the monster to devour it. Yahello's grin twisted with madness as the shadowed beast opened its jaw, hunger gleaming in its fangs. Chains rattled around his body while dark energy surged, his hand glowing with a seal that resisted containment. Len watched in shock as the creature lunged forward, its teeth sinking deep into Yahello's arm without hesitation. Blood sprayed violently, yet Yahello only laughed louder, embracing the agony that would break most men. The monstrous form convulsed, devouring his arm entirely, as Yahello's sinister aura grew even stronger amid the chaos. Yahello struggled against the chains of the sealing curse, his body trembling as dark energy coiled tighter around him. With the ground cracking under immense pressure, he steadied himself, accepting that his end had arrived. A violent strike pierced through his chest, scattering blood and metal fragments as the cursed binding shattered under the explosive surge of his magic. From the depths of his fading soul, a monstrous shadow erupted, roaring into existence with blinding fury that shook the battlefield. Then Len watched in silence as light and darkness intertwined, and Yahello's form dissolved into the storm of roots and divine energy, leaving only silence behind. Yahello clenched his jaw as the potion's effects surged through his body, dulling the pain but not the rage. Len held Yahello's unconscious form as a monstrous shadow emerged behind them, forcing him to retreat and draw his blade. Now fully entwined in a massive tree of dark roots, Yahello awakened with disbelief, realizing he had somehow survived the fatal blow. That relief twisted into madness. A deranged glare formed as he whispered his intent to kill with terrifying clarity. Determined to stop him, Len charged toward the winged beast that had formed from Yahello's unleashed curse, launching a powerful attack that shook the earth. Len stood his ground as the shadow beast surged forward, its massive limbs slicing the air with lethal force. In an instant, the beast's claws smashed down, flinging Len backward with a thunderous impact that shattered debris and drew blood from his arms. Thou launched into the air by the creature's relentless assault, Len twisted mid-flight to brace against the mountain wall as the monster's claw ripped through the ground below. He barely landed on his feet before the beast lunged again, closing the distance with terrifying speed and a crushing leap. With no time to think, Len ducked under the beast's tail, his body scraping earth as shock waves erupted behind him. Len's body spun helplessly through the air, battered by the force, his vision blurring from the impact. Far away, Yahello remained silent within the twisted tree, his presence unsettling as Len sensed a power beyond recognition. With a painful scrape, Len landed and slid across the ground, narrowly avoiding the beast's crushing descent as dust exploded around him. Wounded and panting, he realized this monstrosity's strength exceeded even Yahello's past capabilities. It had become something entirely new. Even so, Len tightened his grip on his sword and sprinted forward, prepared to face the dragon, shaped terror once more. The towering dragon roared into the stormy sky, its muscular form pulsing with chaotic magical energy. Licia flew low across the battlefield, eyes locked on Len as the dragon lunged forward with devastating speed. The beast's charge slammed Len into the ground, launching his broken body toward Licia, blood streaking through the air. Seeing Len collapse in pain and barely conscious, Licia's expression shifted from fear to desperate concern as she called his name. As the monstrous dragon approached, Licia knelt beside Len's unmoving form, shielding him with her body while staring into the enemy's eyes. Yahello loomed from within the cursed tree, his face twisted with madness as he declared the moment of death. His gaze locked on Len and Licia, savoring what he believed would be his final act of destruction. Without hesitation, Licia released a surge of magic surrounding Len's broken body and radiant light that repelled the darkness. As healing energy enveloped him, Len's hand twitched and slowly tightened around Licia's fingers in a faint response. Then she smiled gently through tears, grateful he had protected her despite everything. Holding his hand close to her heart, Len knelt beside Licia, whose bloodied figure barely clung to life, whispering her name with trembling breath. Licia gazed up at him, offering a faint smile as if to ease his sorrow despite her fading strength. Though her voice could barely rise, then her hand rested near his, silently entrusting him with what she could no longer carry. A massive shadow fell over them as the enemy's clawed foot crashed to the ground, signaling the fight was far from over. Len stood firm beside her, eyes unwavering, vowing in his heart to protect her without retreat, no matter the cost. As the monstrous claw descended with crushing force, Len raised his sword and stared death in the eye. He spun with swift momentum, unleashing a powerful arc of energy that tore through the space before him. Gritting his teeth, Len tightened his grip as his blade clashed against overwhelming strength. The impact shaking the ground, though the beast pressed harder, he let out a fierce cry, his aura flaring as his sword surged with defiance. With an earth-splitting roar, the enemy lunged again, but Len refused to falter while Licia still lay behind him. The creature lunged with its claws outstretched, but Len braced himself with his sword ready to strike. In a flash of violent impact, the beast was thrown back, and Len's sword embedded itself into the ground, exhausted. He collapsed beside Licia, clutching her hand as the monstrous threat began to rise again. Suddenly, her bracelet glowed, releasing a wave of energy that surged into Len's arm and lit up his eyes. On an unknown interface, mysterious symbols flickered to life beside a level indicator, signaling the start of something new. As the energy from Licia's bracelet pulsed through his arm, Len questioned the sudden emergence of power. The monstrous beast lunged toward them once more, claws tearing through the air with violent force. Raising his hand high, then Len made a desperate vow, willing to accept anything if it meant protecting her. From that oath, a blinding light erupted upward as a massive sword of energy took shape in his grasp. Far off, a mysterious figure and the beast reacted to the overwhelming surge, eyes wide with shock and recognition. A whirlwind of energy spiraled outward as Len's sword released a devastating wave toward the monstrous foe. The beast's body reeled as the glowing slash struck directly through its chest, halting its forward charge. A blinding burst of light exploded across the battlefield, scattering fragments of impact and tearing through the air. With wings torn apart, the creature's silhouette faded in the wave, unable to withstand the force unleashed. Its once mighty form disintegrated mid-roar, vanishing into particles as the battle reached its long-awaited conclusion. From atop a twisted tree, the elf watched in disbelief as the explosion's light rapidly consumed the landscape. The blast expanded outward with overwhelming intensity, engulfing everything in its radius with spiraling magical energy. A towering pillar of light erupted into the sky, shaking the air and illuminating the distant mountains. Across the forest and beyond, the beam pierced the clouds while Len's glowing hand anchored its release. As the energy calmed, Len collapsed near Licia, her breathing faint as he stared at the fading light in his palm. Licia remained unconscious and Len stood protectively. The energy swirled around them. Morning light broke over the fortified capital, still haunted by recent unrest. The streets remained quiet, uneasy peace hanging in the air. Inside a modest room, a young woman gently woke a boy with urgent news. A nobleman, Lord Clausel, was finally being transferred to the imperial capital. Elsewhere, quiet conversations filled the alleyways. Rumors spread that Clausel's trial was incomplete, raising questions. Soldiers and citizens gathered as a guarded procession moved through the main street. Watching from above, one figure quietly observed, tension reflected in their eyes leading the escort. A high-ranking official surveyed the crowd with stern authority. Behind him, soldiers held banners aloft. Amid the procession, questions were raised about the unusual leniency shown toward Len Ashton by a noble officer. Rather than answer directly, the older noble responded cryptically, acknowledging how everyone dismisses Len as a mere country knight's son. In hushed reflection, the man recalled a past discovery, an unexpected piece of information found by chance in old archives. He believed that gaining control over the Ashton family, especially Len, would elevate the status of the Gwyn household within the hero faction. Turning away, he left the younger knight confused. "Someday, you'll understand," he said. Hiding the true story, a mysterious light had pierced the night sky, its origin unknown. Some feared it was the saint's power. If so, something grave might have happened in Yelku, Orders were dispatched swiftly. Knights rode out under the cover of darkness to investigate the disturbance. Tension weighed heavily on the noble in charge. His forces were already stretched thin against the royalist faction. He reminded his subordinates that failure was not an option. At dawn, the gates opened. Soldiers marched with urgency, their leader's gaze fixed on the road ahead. From beyond the hills, a lone rider approached. The radiance surrounding her caused a stir among onlookers. The knight's expression froze as he recognized the figure emerging from the light. His voice trembled in disbelief. Licia stood tall, radiant against the backdrop of dawn. Her eyes revealed neither fear nor hesitation. Horses galloped across the field. A voice shouted her name, desperate to reach her before anyone else could. Len broke formation and rushed to her side. Guards tried to intervene, but Licia reassured them. She insisted they speak later, prioritizing calm over chaos. While resting against her shoulder, Len murmured his resolve. He couldn't let the sacrifices made for them be in vain. Licia remained silent, but her eyes softened. The nobleman named Givens halted his horse as Licia boldly stepped forward, addressing him directly. Without hesitation, she declared her stance. Although polite, her tone carried firm defiance. Rejecting his assumed authority, taken aback by her response, Givens allowed a twisted smile. He reminded her who truly held influence: her father, not her. Despite her steady voice, Licia's eyes revealed a flicker of doubt. Observers sensed her internal conflict beneath the surface. Givens studied her closely. From what he had heard, she was still immature, struggling to stay composed through exhaustion. Licia lowered her head briefly, then urged Len forward. With quiet conviction, she challenged the noble to observe what she held. Unfazed, she revealed a magical item once carried by an elf reportedly employed by his faction. She implied it could link him to the recent attack. The noble scoffed at the accusation. His expression darkened, dismissing her claim as absurd, coming from someone titled a saint. As her voice rose, Licia declared that both she and Len had witnessed the elf attack firsthand. Yet the noble questioned how such claims implicated him directly. Removing his glasses with an air of disdain, he ridiculed the artifact as flimsy evidence. Licia pressed further, asserting they had been attacked in the forest by knights bearing the noble's insignia. Her demand for accountability grew sharper. Without hesitation, she pointed at one of the armored men. She clearly remembered his face, and the blade raised against her and Len tension escalated as the accused knight denied the claim. He insisted he had remained outside the forest under direct orders. The noble adjusted his glasses, concluding that Licia had likely been misled by someone else. He subtly dismissed her statement as confusion. Though Licia suggested continuing the discussion in her town, the noble refused coldly. His smile revealed he had no intention of cooperating further. The knight stepped forward to defend Licia's claim, reminding the noble that her words carried weight. Givens rejected the warning and insisted that if a trial was needed, it would be held in the capital. Watching silently, Len clenched his fist. He demanded the knight show his hand, the mark revealing the truth. With unwavering eyes, Len declared the knight's guilt. His voice left no room for doubt, and the noble flinched. Len stands before a mounted army, sweat trickling down as pressure mounts. He braces himself, unwilling to let the bonds he has formed be wasted. A knight in armor steps forward, ordering Len to show the back of his hand. Tension rises around them as soldiers remain alert, waiting for a response that could change everything. Licia interrupts firmly. She claims the man being questioned should bear a wound, one inflicted by both her and Len. An older knight moves to act, commanding the accused to reveal his hand. Panic flashes in the younger knight's eyes as he hesitates, caught between duty and fear. Defiance breaks out. The younger knight yells in protest, insisting on his innocence. The older officer leans forward, voice sharp and cold. He orders the younger knight to reveal his hand at once, warning that if he hesitates further, caught off guard, the young knight stiffens. His eyes widen in alarm as pressure builds beyond escape. Crowds begin to gather, whispers filling the air. Reluctantly, the knight starts removing his gauntlet. Sweat lining his brow metal falls to the ground with a clatter. The armored glove hits the dirt, revealing a partially healed mark on the back of his hand. A jagged burn and a shallow cut are exposed. They match the signs of holy magic evidence, not easily dismissed. The officer delivers his final statement, cold and absolute. With no room left for doubt, he declares the matter closed and prepares to withdraw. The knights begin their departure, banners raised as they ride out of the castle gate. Riding at the rear, the sharply dressed man maintains a stern composure. His expression doesn't waver as he follows the departing force out of the castle grounds. Licia watches him go, her eyes filled with hesitation. Without turning back, the officer rides ahead. Dust rises with the steady steps of horses. His gaze remains fixed forward, leaving silence in his wake. The investigation concludes as the officer declares the matter settled. Without further explanation, he announces his departure. Knights and officials begin to move out in formation. Riding at the front, the blonde knight bows his head while others follow, leaving Len and Licia watching silently from the side. The stern officer, now separated from the others, rides with quiet authority. He remains expressionless, offering no glance back at the people or place he leaves behind. Licia watches him go with an unreadable expression. Hooves strike the ground as the officer rides into the distance. Dust swirls behind him while his cold, unwavering gaze stays locked forward. Never acknowledging those left behind, a close-up of Licia's eye reveals her growing unease. Questions swirl silently in her mind, uncertainty tightening in her expression. Suddenly, a slow and deliberate clap echoes. The unexpected sound draws everyone's attention. Eyes widen as all heads turn toward the source. With his back to them, the mysterious man praises what just occurred. He steps forward, praising their courage and the dignity they displayed. His tone is theatrical, calling their encounter a beautiful story. Licia, caught off guard, stares at him in confusion. Her lips part to speak, questioning who he truly is. Around her, murmurs rise as others wonder the same. The mysterious gentleman introduces himself as Edgar. With a calm expression, he politely asks to take charge of the current situation on behalf of the saint. He lifts his hand and clarifies that his intention is not to disrupt, but merely assist in closing the curtain on the events that unfolded, without diminishing the efforts of those involved. Turning to the nobles, Edgar presents himself as a messenger sent by his master to the region. Smiling, Edgar responds without hostility. He slowly draws a decorated emblem, bearing blade from his suit. Faces tense as the ornate crest becomes visible. Recognition flashes across everyone's eyes, its meaning unmistakable. Licia listens quietly as Edgar hints that even without stating his master's name, everyone seems to have understood his position. The officer's composure breaks. He accuses Edgar of mocking nobility and demands clarity. Edgar calmly warns that misinterpreting a noble's crest could lead to consequences. Turning to the legal envoy of the empire, Edgar clarifies his authority. He was granted full freedom by his master to act and even speak in his stead when needed. The envoy, realizing the situation's weight, agrees that there are too many inconsistencies as a final point. Edgar emphasizes the gratitude his master holds for Len Ashton. That connection shifts the tone. Edgar's calm gaze sharpens. He warns that if similar interference occurs again, his side will remain involved until the very end. Far away, a shadowed figure sits in a throne, face obscured. This man is the true master Edgar represents, silently offering his support from behind the scenes. Shock spreads across the faces of both the officer and the imperial envoy. Confusion turns to suspicion. The officer clenches his teeth, questioning why such a powerful figure would even bother to act in this matter. Suddenly, cloaked skeletal figures appear behind the officer, weapons drawn. A blade hovers near his throat. Edgar explains that the miracle caused by Len and Licia earned his master's attention. Moreover, Len's past act of saving someone dear further justified the intervention. Licia suddenly recalls the moment being referenced. Her eyes widen as understanding settles in. Behind her, Len remains silent, still exhausted from the ordeal. With a slight smile, Edgar casually refers to the accusation that he had drawn his blade. A majestic castle overlooked the valley as Len's eyes slowly fluttered open. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar, and the air carried a quiet chill. Silken drapes and elegant decor framed the grand bedroom. Len sat upright, confusion growing as he noticed another presence beside him. Suddenly, the girl stirred, recognizing him instantly. Licia's eyes widened. Without hesitation, she rushed into his arms, catching him off guard with her unexpected embrace. Tears welled in Licia's eyes as she clung to Len tightly, overwhelmed by relief. Len held her gently. Sitting up in bed, Len listened intently. From Licia, he learned the truth. He had been unconscious for an entire month since arriving in Clausel. Len remained seated in bed as a well-dressed man approached, gesturing calmly. Later that day, the man explained how a retrial had been held. Thanks to Len and Licia's actions, the charges against him were dismissed. The real culprit, identified as a noble named Shigu, confessed. Using a hidden poison, he took his own life rather than face judgment. Len was stunned by the revelation. The man speculated Shigu might have chosen death, either due to pressure from powerful allies or because he feared what capture would expose before any further investigation could be conducted. Shigu's mansion mysteriously caught fire. All remaining evidence was lost in the flames. Grateful beyond words, the nobleman expressed deep thanks to Len. He revealed that the powerful house backing him only intervened because of Len's earlier actions. From the materials gathered from a rare creature called the sea wolfen, essential ingredients for valuable medicine could be extracted. Because Len had defeated a sea wolfen without damaging its insides, he unknowingly provided perfect materials. It was revealed that the one saved by that medicine was a nobleman's daughter, long ill and bedridden. Thanks to Len, her life had been preserved. To express gratitude, the noble's household extended a formal invitation. Len accepted the emblem, marked envelope. Len stared at the crest on the invitation, eyes wide in disbelief. It belonged to the Ignat family, an aristocratic house known in his past life as the final boss of the Legend of the Seven Heroes. Despite their noble standing, the Ignat family had historically aligned with dark forces. However, Len remembered something odd. The family's rebellion began after the death of the Duke's daughter. In the game, she had never survived. A week later, the castle's halls stood quiet. Word of Len's recovery had spread, and visitors began arriving from distant places. His parents, having fled an earlier village attack, came to see him. They brought salvaged belongings and relief. Len recalled a strange sensation from the battlefield. His bracelet had reacted just as he touched Lycia. Though no marks remained on the bracelet now, the moment still puzzled him. The magical sword that appeared back then also vanished afterward, raising even more questions about that encounter. Later, Len and Lycia walked along the castle balcony. She expressed relief that Len's parents had safely returned, clearly sharing in his peace of mind. While speaking with her, Len found himself suddenly observing her closely, startled. Lycia blushed and demanded to know how he'd figured it out. Len's casual guess had somehow hit the truth. Lycia was startled by Len's sudden insight, questioning if he had heard something from her father. Len quickly dismissed it, explaining it had been a light-hearted guess based on instinct. After a moment of hesitation, Lycia admitted the truth. She trusted Len enough to share something she wouldn't tell anyone else. Only a select few, she revealed, could harbor a magic stone within their body. Meanwhile, Len reflected on the mysterious sword that had appeared earlier. He wondered if its emergence might be tied to one of the legendary weapons from the Legend of the Seven Heroes. Despite the possibility, he questioned whether that event had meaning beyond just gaining power. Len stood alone on the balcony, deep in thought. He considered whether everything that had happened was truly unavoidable, or simply a result of choices made. Originally, he had planned to avoid getting involved with Lycia or anyone tied to the tragic future, he remembered. Defeating the Sea Wolfen had triggered a shift, the story's flow. Once familiar from the game now diverged. People like Yelku, who were supposed to die or become future bosses, were now spared. Even the fate of the Ignat family's daughter had changed. Each decision he made, however small, was reshaping this world. The weight of his actions had become impossible to ignore. Lycia gently reached out, placing her hand on Len's cheek. Surprised, he paused mid-thought as she quietly asked what was troubling him. Without hesitation, she reassured him. To her, Len wasn't just anyone, he was her hero. Those words reached him more deeply than he expected. Memories of their first meeting resurfaced. Back then, he had been defensive and distant, yet now she looked at him with warmth as he closed his eyes and leaned into her touch. Peace finally settled within him. Far away in the heart of the Empire, clouds drifted above sprawling cities. Inside a grand chamber of the Imperial Officer Academy, across the continent, newspapers reported mysterious light sightings. Theories varied, some called it divine. Others claimed it was the wrath of a forgotten god. Within the Academy director's office, Chrono Highland let out a weary sigh. Elsewhere, a young woman in a pointed hat calmly read the same reports. A glimmer crossed her eyes as she thought about the one who might erase her past. A sudden death in the capital sparked chaos. Rumors spread some claimed foreign invasion. Others spoke of divine punishment. Amid the turmoil, Ignat, head of the royalist faction, remained seated in silence. The incident's cause, far from logical, pointed to him. His daughter lay sick in bed. He had searched endlessly for medicine, but failed. The royal family possessed the cure, yet the emperor denied him access. Though the medicine had been in imperial hands, the emperor claimed he acted justly. Still, the girl's condition worsened. In the end, she died quietly in her chambers, consumed by grief. Ignat resented the emperor. Vengeance brewed in silence. Edgar sat quietly in the garden of the royal estate, a warm cup of tea in hand. The butler served him respectfully, speaking of things that could not be bought with gold. A slight smile formed on Edgar's face as he nodded in agreement. He felt a sense of calm, the burden of grief slightly lifted. The butler hesitated, but Edgar cut him off gently. He knew the emperor's decision had not been personal. It was made for the sake of the empire. Still, understanding didn't mean acceptance. Deep down, Edgar remained unsettled. His daughter's voice called to him, breaking the silence. There she stood alive, smiling, no longer in pain. The butler rushed to greet the returning girl, Fiona, who offered her help with cheerful energy. Fiona shared her gratitude and spoke about visiting Lord Lanark to thank him. Edgar responded warmly, but reminded her that he was expected by the Clausel estate and couldn't delay. She proposed writing a letter. Instead, Edgar agreed, acknowledging the importance of respecting Clausel's wishes. With a smile, he asked for a little more patience. Looking up at the sky, Fiona nodded softly. The birds soared freely. Silently, both made the same vow one day. No matter what, they would meet again. Gratitude unspoken would be shared. Under the crescent moon, the city of Clausel glowed silently. In a room lit by candlelight, a boy sat deep in thought, unable to sleep. He studied a glowing orb hovering above his hand, a rare item called the Azure Orb of Sarakia. The orb's description hinted at immense power. With enough magic and a dragon's horn, it could be awakened and swear absolute loyalty to its master upon rebirth. He recalled the game's lore. A sealed creature of ice and darkness was rumored to slumber inside, but no one ever found a way to activate it. When he opened the door, a girl appeared, asking politely if she could come in despite the late hour. Rishia, the white saint, entered the room with a gentle smile, noticing the boy examining the glowing gem again. He explained how the orb had been recovered from a ruin by his parents and remained intact, even through a fire. Rishia listened quietly, concerned. If the orb truly held a dangerous being, keeping it close might be safer than letting it fall into the wrong hands. After a pause, she asked how long he intended to stay in Clausel, her eyes searching for an answer. Smiling playfully, she decided for him staying for 1,000 more times would be just fine. Len explained that even with daily effort, his project would take nearly 3 years. Rishia, frustrated by the slow plan, insisted he stay in her room instead. She softened, admitting she wouldn't demand 1,000 more times, just asked that he take things slower and not rush away. Their eyes met in silence. A quiet understanding passed between them, unspoken but clear. He smiled gently and agreed to stay a little longer. With calm sincerity, he said he would continue to rely on her for a while. Time passed with them training together daily. Between their sparring sessions, they sometimes walked through the city, went shopping, and shared quiet moments side by side. One afternoon, while shopping, Rishia insisted on buying Len a formal outfit using her own allowance, much to his surprise and embarrassment. Later that day, a group of mounted knights arrived in Clausel. Ren, curious, asked whether they were the Order of the Holy Knights. An older knight confirmed their identity. He invited Len to observe a demonstration, noting that the visiting knight was highly skilled and led the order. As they walked through the grand hall, the knight explained that most swordsmen studied a major school of swordsmanship. Len recalled the game lore. These techniques allowed non-skilled individuals to fight using mana-based sword arts, a substitute for innate abilities. Learned that his guide had once favored the imperial style of swordsmanship, since holy techniques didn't suit him. As he listened, Len reflected on how sword users were ranked by skill. Rishia was known as one of the best, nearly at the highest level, just beneath sword saints. Curious, Len asked if there were other sword styles worth exploring. The knight mentioned steel sword style. The steel sword's founder was said to be King Leonel, the Lion King. This technique was extremely hard to learn and nearly impossible to acquire. Memories of frustration resurfaced. Despite its power, the style came with harsh drawbacks, permanent stat reductions, and fatal blows that couldn't be avoided. Rishia enthusiastically invited Len to train together. Standing beside the knight, he was unsure how to respond to her sudden energy. Approached a tall, confident man who had heard of Len's skill from Rishia. He offered Len the chance to join them for training, though Len modestly declined at first. The man insisted on observing his abilities, proposing a light demonstration. Drawing his blade, the instructor calmly stepped forward, inviting Len to begin with a simple exchange of strikes. Steel clashed as their swords met in a sharp test of strength and reflexes. Despite the casual invitation, this was no ordinary practice. It marked the beginning of a serious evaluation of Len's potential. Clash intensified. Len moved swiftly, testing the instructor's defense with calculated swings and quick footwork, surprising onlookers with his speed. Face to face, Len struck with greater precision. His stance, though unpolished, carried determination and raw instinct, forcing the instructor to respond seriously. The man encouraged Len not to imitate others. Instead, he urged him to fight as himself, to embrace what felt natural, rather than mimic techniques from memory. Realizing he had subconsciously relied on old habits from his past life, Len shifted. With a focused breath, he adjusted his grip and resolved to move forward his own way. Energy exploded from his blade as he unleashed a flurry of strikes. The instructor acknowledged Len's form. Though he anticipated a strong showing, Len's attack exceeded expectations, forcing the knight to counter seriously. Rishia looked on in surprise, while Len readied himself again, unshaken by the previous exchange and more focused than before. Despite attempting to shatter Len's defense, the knight realized his blow had been blocked, a feat few could manage. After the match, the knight asked for Len's name. Upon hearing it, he respectfully stated that Len likely wasn't suited for the holy sword style. Both Len and Rishia were taken aback. She questioned the assessment, unable to understand why someone so clearly strong wasn't a match for the revered sword technique. The instructor clarified that Len's strength was undeniable, but his true limitation was compatibility. Even if Len trained hard enough to learn them, there was no guarantee he'd ever truly master the underlying arts that made them effective. Len proposed a compromise. Instead of advanced techniques, perhaps he could start with basic swordsmanship under proper guidance. Later, another knight questioned why someone as skilled as Len was denied access to the holy sword path. The answer wasn't about favoritism. The experienced instructor had sensed it during their duel. Len possessed a rare talent, not for the sacred path but for an entirely different, extraordinary sword style. Later that evening, Len asked Rixia if she had been upset during the lesson. She looked puzzled at first, but he pointed out that she seemed withdrawn midway. Her flustered reaction only confirmed it, though she denied it. Len teasingly concluded that her reaction betrayed her true feelings. Rixia voiced her frustration to her. The instructor's comment sounded like he was saying Len lacked talent. Ren, however, calmly said it was better to know early and avoid wasted time. He urged her to focus on her own progress instead of worrying about him. Rixia admitted that even the instructor had noted similarities between their sword styles. She then revealed a quiet truth in her efforts to surpass him. She had studied his every movement. Each stance and sword swing she practiced had been based on Len's own form. Rixia admitted that her swordsmanship bore the same flaws as Ren's. Though the instructor claimed it was still within the fixable range, doubt lingered in her heart. She curled up on the bed, quietly confessing that correcting those flaws felt like being told her entire goal-chasing Len had been wrong from the start, yet with a more composed expression. She told Len there was no need to cling to one style. There were many sword paths and perhaps another suited her better. Len pondered this. Remembering that Rixia had trained in holy sword techniques, he answered with sincerity their circumstances differed. He was a knight from a rural land while she was a saint. Rixia stood firm, expressing her resolve to choose her own path. With no obligations tying her down, she recalled her father's encouragement to pursue what she believed in. She understood the difficulty of unlearning ingrained habits and believed starting fresh would lead to better growth. Her gaze held quiet determination. The boy beside her realized something critical. Rixia wasn't a character from the original game. She was different, unpredictable. Inspired, he decided to search for a path that suited him as well, matching the clarity Rixia displayed under the night sky. A shared destiny quietly began to form between them. Under a moonlit sky, a young girl walks slowly outside a grand mansion, her steps hesitant but determined. Suddenly, her legs give out and she collapses, but a blonde maid catches her just in time, preventing a hard fall. Kneeling beside her, the maid suggests ending the training, but the girl insists on continuing, frustrated by her own weakness. Later that night, she lies awake in bed, haunted by the reality that she still can't walk unaided. With tears in her eyes, she pleads for more time, vowing to try harder before giving up. Supported by her maid, the girl pushes through her pain, longing for the day she can stand tall on her own and express her gratitude without help. She recalls the boy who once freed her from despair. His distant figure remains etched in her memory, driving her forward. From a window high above, someone silently watches her progress as evening falls beyond the estate gates. Exhausted but proud, she sits down. Her father appears unexpectedly, praising her efforts with a warm smile. He hands her a letter from the Imperial Academy, proof that her hard work has finally borne fruit. The girl reads the acceptance letter aloud, her eyes wide with joy. She proudly announces her success to her father, disbelief still lingering. Surprised by the results, she asks why they seemed so confident. Her father, smiling knowingly, turns the question to the maid. Even during her weakest days, she had studied relentlessly in bed. Her efforts never went unnoticed. Despite passing, she confesses how anxious she truly was. Her trembling voice reveals just how much it meant. Her father gently encourages her to keep going slowly but steadily, reminding her that there is no need to rush gratitude. The girl, flustered but smiling, responds sharply, assuring she understands, though her cheeks are tinted with emotion under the moonlight. A grand academy looms on the horizon. A question is raised: what does Len truly want for his future? Offered a comfortable life at home or to remain a knight? Len is given freedom to choose his path. He hesitates, struggling to voice the thoughts he's held inside. Uncertain of what to say at first. Though he longs to be with his family again, he fears becoming a burden and wonders if returning is truly right. A serious discussion unfolds among adults regarding Len's safety. Past mistreatment by a noble and concerns of future threats prompt new plans. Len learns that his father had already spoken with others about his future. The decision to support Len's wishes was made with care. His father believes there is no need to rush major life choices. Until the village recovers, Len should live peacefully in Clausel. Grateful, Len expresses a desire to someday resolve problems on his own, even if it is idealistic for someone of his position. Misunderstandings arise about noble expectations, but his father assures him the real message lies elsewhere. A mighty sword pierces the earth, its name, Sword King. The words send a powerful tremor through Len's thoughts. Stunned, Len confirms its meaning. He learns that only 5 of these legendary swordsmen exist in the world. These Sword Kings are bound by no nation. Moving freely by their own will, some dwell in the imperial capital by choice alone. Even in legends, defeating them required overwhelming strength, teamwork, and extraordinary luck. Len is encouraged to learn under Vice alongside Lisha. His guardian promises full support, urging him to sharpen himself without fear, eager to contribute, offers to help with any available work, no matter how small. He asks whether the task involves hunting magical beasts, his eyes sharp with curiosity. The reply confirms it, with beasts increasing dangerously. Len is asked to help investigate and monitor nearby threats. His duties include tracking monster activity, reporting regularly, and eliminating them when necessary. Additionally, he is permitted to take on guild requests during his outings. As he steps into the city streets, the possibilities of adventure and responsibility begin to unfold before him. Len arrives at the guild entrance, confirming to himself that this is the right place. As he steps inside, the room falls into momentary silence. Adventurers glance over, surprised by his presence. A gruff man murmurs in curiosity while a woman beside him advises him not to stare. Len remains calm. Unfazed, at the counter, Len requests to register. The receptionist hesitates but agrees, noting his confident manner despite his youth. She asks again if it's truly his first time, though. Surprised by his composure, she processes the request without issue. Len receives his guild card, already aware of the system. He explains he studied the rules through reading, including card replacement fees. At the quest board, he scans the postings. These contain information about magical beasts in the surrounding area. He notes that even D-rank creatures are scarce and colossal due to the region's low threat level. As he reflects, 3 figures appear behind him. One asks if he's curious about the hero. They reveal they were referring to him. His composed demeanor and polite negotiation had clearly left a strong impression. One of the men warns Len to avoid a particular target, implying it's more dangerous than it appears. The other explains that the D-rank gargoyle isn't usually a threat unless provoked, yet its retaliation is still powerful. Len learns about rare gargoyles that consume metal and minerals. These unique types are called steel-eating gargoyles. He considers the benefits. Such materials are valuable, and defeating one could yield resources for a stronger magic sword. A skill window appears. Len's stats show he has the potential, though his skills still have room to grow. Len walks through the forest, reflecting on his recent growth. Since his battle with Yelku, his magic sword summoning has leveled up. He can now summon 2 swords at once. Suddenly, a rustle in the grass alerts him. A rabbit-like creature emerges, eyes wild and aggressive. It's a Mitsume, an F-rank monster. Despite its size, it's fast and hostile. Len calmly summons his iron magic sword and swiftly counters the attack. Without hesitation, he follows up with his second summon, the wood magic sword, striking with practiced ease and repelling the beast. Len effortlessly ensnared a wild creature using vines summoned by his magic. With practiced precision, he hoisted it over his shoulder and scanned the brush for movement. The forest erupted with startled rustling as nearby creatures sensed danger and fled. Their cries echoed across the vast field, warning others of the hunter's presence. Later, seated on a rock, Len reviewed his skill levels. His wood magic sword had reached its limit between bites of his sandwich. He wondered if leveling required specific conditions. Strategies swirled in his mind. As the sun rose higher, more vines writhed across the land, expanding their reach, a sign his power was still growing. At the marketplace, onlookers were stunned as Len arrived, dragging massive bundles of vines. A clerk nervously asked if she could purchase everything he had. 2 E-rank earthworms, tightly bound in enchanted vines, lay before her. Though their magic stones had been removed, she confirmed the trade. By evening, Len had earned 600,000 gold, an amount far beyond a commoner's yearly wage. With thoughts of investment, he wandered into the merchant district. Inside a familiar tailor's shop, he examined suits. The staff recognized him from a past visit, impressed by his unexpected return. A month later, a girl stood shocked by his sudden departure, demanding to know where he was going. Len attempted to express gratitude with a farewell gift, but the girl insisted he stay, urging him to remain in the guest room, politely refusing. He explained his place was as a servant of the Ashton family and requested directions to the old mansion, his new assignment. After consulting with Lord Lezard, he had accepted the role of caretaker for the old estate, feeling it more appropriate than residing as a guest. She misunderstood his intentions and felt misled, believing he had returned to the village. Later, a maid delivered a box. The girl noticed it bore the emblem of the same clothing shop Len had visited. With a gentle expression, Len opened the box he had carefully prepared, drawing the girl's quiet attention. Inside was a neatly folded dress from the boutique she had recognized earlier. He invited her to accept it, if she was willing. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she remained speechless as he delicately lifted the garment. Kneeling before her, Len presented the gift, confirming it was indeed for her. He explained that he had bought it the day he earned money for the first time, making the gesture all the more meaningful to them both. The girl gently touched the fabric, admiring its texture. She whispered that it was adorable, her expression softening. Ren, smiling slightly, offered to find another if she didn't like it. His tone was light yet considerate. Tightly clutching the dress, she shook her head and quietly declared she wouldn't return it. She loved it too much. Seeing her embrace the gift, Len wondered silently if she truly liked it, feeling a subtle warmth rise within him. She admitted it wasn't fair, emotionally moved. Len apologized, assuring her he never intended to seek forgiveness through material means. Turned away, flustered by the sudden emotions, Len watched in silence, unsure how to respond to her mixed signals. Len lies in bed, trapped in a dream. Memories from the game Legend of the Seven Heroes II surface vividly, pulling him into a past he knows all too well. In the dream, he sees Cronoa Highland, a renowned mage, standing beside Licia Clausel in a regal hall. Cronoa falls. Slain, the vision shows her lifeless body, pierced by a sword. Len's own hand the cause. She was an academy headmaster and one of the strongest in the game. How Len defeated her remains a mystery. Len wakes in shock. The dream was too real. Determined to avoid that future, he decides to stay far from the Empire and its academy. Morning arrived in the city, and Len greeted the townspeople while walking through the bustling market. The locals responded warmly to his cheerful presence. Adventurers Guild, where adventurers gathered, drinking and exchanging quests in a lively atmosphere. He checked the mission board but found nothing of interest. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten enough. A quiet laugh caught his attention. A hooded girl nearby had noticed the sound and smiled in amusement. With a gentle gesture, she invited Len to join her for breakfast, sparking an unexpected encounter. Len hesitated but approached the girl. She quickly reassured him, insisting she would cover the cost, urging him not to feel awkward. He politely declined the offer, explaining that he had money and simply needed a seat. Her identity remained unclear under the hood, yet she seemed oddly familiar. Their meal arrived, and the two sat together in silence. Len noticed how calm and mature she appeared, used to the atmosphere. She broke the silence with light teasing. Her voice sounded altered, raising suspicions about her true nature. Curious, Len asked why she spoke to him. She admitted she had been thinking about how to recruit him. The hooded girl joked about recruiting him, but Len nervously declined, saying he'd be arrested if he got involved in something like that. She extended a serious invitation, asking him to visit the capital together, saying she enjoyed talking to him. Len refused without hesitation. She sighed, a little hurt realizing he knew she was from the capital. After paying for their meal, she stood up, explaining she had to leave for another task but wished they could have talked more. Before parting, she smiled and asked Len to someday tell her about his mysterious power. As the girl exited the guild, Len froze, startled by her parting words that hinted she knew about his hidden power. He rushed out, heart racing. How could she possibly know about his sword-summoning magic, something he hadn't told anyone? Scanning the busy street, Len couldn't find her. Before he could investigate further, someone called out, asking if he was headed to the eastern forest again. Two adventurers invited Len to join their hunt deeper in the woods, saying the guild needed help. Len politely declined, explaining he had another task assigned by someone important. The adventurers respected Len's refusal and expressed interest in hunting with him another time. He responded politely, appreciating their offer. As he walked away, his thoughts returned to the mysterious hooded girl. Her identity and how she knew about his power remained a puzzle. In the forest, a monstrous plant creature lunged at him. Len reacted swiftly, ready for battle. He fought with precision and subdued the creature alone. Showcasing his skill and composure later, he documented the findings. His task continued smoothly, and he considered how the money earned could help support his hometown. While walking through the forest, Len paused, thinking about his hometown. He wondered if the people there would be happy with his progress. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the trees. Len looked up sharply, recognizing the sound something dangerous had awakened. A massive rift split the ground open. The tremors shook the area violently. Inside the ravine, a battle had erupted. A loud cry signaled the arrival of someone leaping into combat. Two adventurers engaged a dark-winged enemy. With blades drawn, they fought fiercely, wings clashing against steel. The adventurer's blades struck the creature's arm, but the surface was too tough, barely a scratch appeared. Several members of the group were already wounded, struggling to stay upright while others tried to hold the line. Calling out to his comrade Midas, the red-haired fighter braced himself with a shield, attempting to buy time. A violent counterattack followed. The creature's claws shattered the shield and slashed deep into his body, sending shards and blood flying. As he fell back, the beast loomed over them. His ally screamed his name, charging in desperation. The beast lunged forward, claws extended. The swordsman with cat ears blocked the attack with his armored arm, gritting his teeth from the impact. Holding the enemy in place, he braced himself as someone from above leapt down, preparing to strike. Len soared through the smoke-filled air, sword ready, aiming directly at the enemy's opening. The creature revealed its true form, an enormous winged dragon with hardened scales and overwhelming presence. Len confirmed his suspicion. The roar he had heard earlier belonged to this terrifying dragon. He charged in without hesitation. The monstrous foe revealed its identity, the iron-eating gargoyle, its armored body gleaming under the sun. Len and the others regrouped. They were surprised to see the creature there, far from where it was last reported. Without hesitation, Len stepped forward and told the others to evacuate the injured while he drew the enemy's attention. The dragon-like beast soared into the air as it prepared to strike again. The group agreed to Len's plan. Focused and determined, Len sprinted forward, clashing blades with the beast in a powerful frontal assault. Len clashed with the iron-scaled dragon, striking fiercely. Sparks flew as their blows collided again and again. His blade chipped slightly from the pressure. The dragon's defenses were stronger than expected, but he didn't back down. Using a burst of magic, Len summoned thorned vines that bound the beast's limbs, halting its movement just long enough. With perfect timing, he closed in and landed a powerful strike across its body. The dragon reeled back, roaring in pain. As the beast fell, Len assessed it calmly. Realizing this one far exceeded the threat level of any typical D rank, Len charged straight at the dragon. Blades clashing violently, he matched the beast's assault without retreating. A direct hit landed on the creature's torso. Cracks formed across its armor, but it countered immediately with overwhelming force. Len held his ground, focused. But as he fought, another shadow appeared in the sky. Another dragon approached from above. The ground trembled from a sudden impact. Len turned in shock as a massive blast exploded nearby. Smoke cleared, revealing a second dragon. The group braced themselves, realizing the real battle was just beginning. Two powerful dragons landed before the boy, their armored bodies ready to strike. The ground trembled as they closed in, their claws scraping the earth. Surrounded, the boy gripped his twin swords tightly. He faced the overwhelming threat with tense resolve as the dragons prepared to attack simultaneously. Len faces off against two dragons, shocked as more enemies appear than intelligence reported. He raises his sword, forced into immediate action. The dragons launch a synchronized assault, their wings tearing through the air. A shockwave throws Len back, but he manages to stay focused. Regaining his footing, Len sees an ally charging forward. The armored beast closes in from the side, catching them both off guard. Len counters with a precise slash, striking one dragon's jaw with explosive force, driving it backward in pain. As the dragon crashes, Len prepares for the next move. Retreating would endanger others. He steps forward, resolved to finish. The battle vines erupt from the ground, binding the dragon mid-air. Len braces for impact, sword drawn tightly in both hands. The dragon breaks free and lunges, its claws sweeping wide. Len is thrown backward, caught in the whirlwind of its wings. Despite the pain, he regains control mid-air. He focuses on the enemy, knowing he cannot let a monster that harmed others escape. With a burst of speed, Len drives his blade deep into the dragon's chest, striking directly into its core. The dragon collapses, roaring in agony. Len lands firmly, his eyes locked on the defeated enemy. The dragon's body begins to crack apart, unstable energy surging from its core. A burst of light erupts from the wound, and Len instinctively raises his arm. The energy flows toward him. A new ability awakens within him. As text appears before his eyes, he confirms it a magic sword with barrier powers. Without delay, Len conjures vines to restrain a nearby enemy. His control has sharpened with the sword's upgrade. Another dragon dives in rage, wings tearing the sky. Len braces for the next clash, empowered and unshaken. A claw slammed into the earth with violent force. Sparks scattered as the dragon glared, eyes locked on its opponent. Hovering in front of Ren, a glowing barrier pulsed with energy. The dragon halted, unable to pierce the dome surrounding him. Clenching his newly awakened sword, Len understood this was the magic blade of defense. It wasn't just power, it was protection shaped into steel. With the barrier shattered, he stepped forward. Determination surged in his stance. The enemy hesitated. Sensing the shift in momentum, Len launched a decisive slash. Precision, will, and power fused in a single strike, aimed straight at the heart of the threat. A deep canyon split the land, smoke rising through the cracks as dust filled the air. The aftermath of battle lingered like a scar. Survivors gathered around the fallen, their expressions shifting from relief to disbelief as the smoke cleared to reveal a massive dragon's lifeless form. Lying motionless, the armored beast's wings stretched wide, its breathing silenced. Just ahead stood the one who ended the fight, quiet. Still, resolved, Len's presence struck the group with awe. None expected the youth to face such a creature and walk away standing. Unshaken, far away, guards looked on as two dragons, bound in chains, were dragged into the city. Whispers spread quickly, 2 gargoyles defeated in a single campaign. Surrounded by guards and curious onlookers, Len faced their questions about his victory. He downplayed his role, modestly hinting at shared efforts and fortune. A fox-eared ally stepped forward, assuring Len that the guild had been informed. With a calm voice, he insisted Len take all the reward for himself. Later, as the crowd buzzed in the distance, Len reviewed his new stats. The shield magic sword had consumed much mana, but its potential proved worthwhile. The interface displayed his progress levels increased, abilities recorded, and the shield's experience bar rising steadily with each use. Clenching his fist, Len exhaled quietly. For the first time, he truly wondered had he finally become stronger. As Len entered the city, a familiar voice called out to him. He turned, surprised to find a small group waiting near the gates. Among them stood Rija, her expression mixed with concern and surprise. The bruises on Len's face immediately drew everyone's attention. Locking eyes with her, Len called her name softly. The sound held both relief and hesitation. That evening, beneath the crescent moon, the two sat quietly. She assured him there were no major injuries, easing the tension in his eyes. Len confessed he expected her anger. Instead, Rija gently raised a finger to his forehead, asking why he'd ever think that. Rija praised Len's courage, reminding him that many lives had been saved thanks to his actions. She insisted he had every right to be proud. She admitted she had considered being angry, knowing he faced such danger, but ultimately understood his reasons. The mission, after all, had been ordered by her father. Her voice softened as she explained. It wasn't anger that filled her, it was worry. The look in her eyes was clear and genuine. As they walked beneath the archways, she invited him to dine at the manor. Ren, still uncertain, asked if there was more he could do. She smiled, revealing her plans to visit his village again someday. That quiet promise, simple yet sincere, stayed with him. Rija turned toward Len with calm eyes, asking for his company. He nodded softly, accepting without hesitation or doubt. A letter arrived at the Lord's office, warning of growing unrest near the Vald mountain villages. The knights stood ready. Listening to the urgent briefing, they discussed the sighting of steel-eating gargoyles. According to the guild, the creatures were likely drawn by the scent of iron, their bodies unnaturally thin. The elder noted a decline in mineral prices. It seemed the adventurers had recklessly depleted underground resources, leaving beasts starving and displaced. While pondering this crisis, the officer reflected on Len's surprising progress despite lacking holy sword talent. Perhaps Len held potential in swordsmanship after all. Several days after the steel-eating gargoyles were defeated, a convoy moved steadily through the mountain pass under the cold morning mist. Len joined the expedition alongside Lycia and others, riding through the villages under their lordship's protection. As the group paused to rest, Len received an unexpected gesture of affection from a horse once owned by someone named Kuk. The soldiers around him took notice. Gently patting the animal, Len listened as Lycia explained its strange behavior. The horse had been unusually comfortable in their stables from the beginning. She revealed the horse shared blood with magical beasts, just like vices, and was still a growing foal with untapped potential. Lycia explained that horses with magical blood live longer and remain strong for many years. Len listened carefully, realizing the bond would likely last a lifetime. She suggested he give the horse a proper name. As they spoke, a maid approached politely, requesting a moment of Len's time. With a gentle smile, the maid shared that her lady was secretly pleased and hopeful Len might attend an upcoming gathering. It was a birthday celebration Lycia's to be held next month. Len hadn't realized the date was approaching so soon. He thanked her for the reminder and promised to prepare a thoughtful gift upon returning to Krauzel. The idea lingered in his mind. He needed to choose wisely. The expedition approached a small village nestled at the base of distant mountains. Rolling fields gave way to scattered homes and welcoming roads. Locals gathered to greet the arriving group. Lycia bowed respectfully while Len assisted in unloading supplies, earning quiet admiration from the villagers. Later, inside a nearby building, Licia pointed to a map showing their current location. She explained the route ahead would take them past the familiar Baldur mountain range. Len noted how close the path actually ran to the mountain. He silently wondered if the nearby Marquis posed any threat. Elsewhere, dark truths surfaced. Once a minor monster zone, Baldur's range had rapidly become dangerous. The catalyst behind the mountain's corruption was a crystal and ominous magic stone derived from a powerful beast. That beast was Asval, the Crimson Dragon. Once a proud creature, it had guarded the Baldur mountain range for centuries and understood human speech. But one day, corrupted by a demon lord, Asval lost its mind. It turned into a creature of destruction, eventually defeated by the legendary Seven Heroes. Its massive body fell into the volcano that rested in Baldur. Over the years, its flesh melted away, yet the mountain itself was transformed into a dormant threat. Only one piece remained untouched: Asval's magic stone. Hidden deep within the range, it was eventually unearthed by the Marquis. Eyes filled with rage, the Marquis whispered bitterly. Hatred for everything consumed him: people, country, and fate alike. He had devoted his entire life to the kingdom, only to be left with nothing. Even Fiona, someone dear, had vanished without receiving a single moment of mercy. Meanwhile, Len's group continued their journey near the Baldur mountain range. Though he knew nothing would happen, unease lingered whenever the peaks came into view. In a nearby village, a representative urgently approached Vice. River levels had been dropping upstream for days without explanation. The man reported recent storms might have caused debris to block water flow. However, the scale of damage was too great for the villagers to handle alone. Len volunteered to investigate the blocked river, believing he could handle the fallen trees without troubling the knights. A villager hesitated, questioning if Len could manage the task alone. Unsure of his capability, Vice confidently introduced Len as Len Ashton, surprising everyone with the boy's true identity and reputation. The villagers were stunned, realizing they had underestimated him. Ren, flustered by the attention, quietly endured their praise. Len and his group returned from a long expedition, arriving near the castle several days later. Preparations began for an upcoming birthday party. Supplies arrived in bulk and servants rushed to unload everything. He helped with the heavy lifting, surprising the others with his strength as he carried 2 large barrels with ease. While checking the boxes, Licia found a hidden item she had been searching for. Her joy turned to shock when she noticed Len nearby. Panicked, she quickly turned away, claimed she remembered an errand, and fled, clutching the object tightly. After watching Licia leave in a hurry, Len quietly sighed. He realized he hadn't yet prepared a gift for her upcoming birthday. While walking through town, he reviewed possibilities in his mind. Since clothing had already been gifted before, he sought something different this time. He considered accessories, but a ring felt too personal. Just then, a white hawk soared above, catching his attention. Len remembered the hawk's rare feathers, platinum white, shimmering like polished silver. Though lacking magical effects, many women adored them for their beauty. Scratching his head, he hesitated. Such feathers were precious, finding one wouldn't be easy. As Len pondered in frustration, a tall man with beast-like ears approached, noticing his troubled expression and offering help. They sat down at a tavern. Len explained his interest in the platinum feather. The man acknowledged its rarity and the difficulty of acquiring one. Len sipped from his cup, admitting the feather's uniqueness made it a challenging material to obtain. The man explained further, only powerful white hawks could produce platinum feathers, and once their magic faded, the feathers reverted to ordinary ones upon death or exhaustion. Because the transformation took years, the only practical method was to find one that had been naturally shed, an event left entirely to luck. The man suggested sending a request to a merchant guild in the capital, but Len hesitated. It would take too long, and Licia's birthday was only a month away. Suddenly remembering something, the man mentioned a place where white hawks occasionally passed through a forest to the east they crossed before noon. Relieved and grateful, Len's expression brightened. He thanked the man, realizing this clue could change everything. Later that day, he returned home. Licia greeted him, but looked unusually drained, her steps slow as she descended the stairs. Although she brushed off his concern, Len remained unsettled. Her excuse about using too much magic felt incomplete. The following morning, bright clouds drifted above the hills as Len set out early toward the forest the man had described. Guided by a hand-drawn map, he ventured deep between towering trees, checking landmarks until he believed he'd found the right area. Suddenly, the silence broke. Sensing danger or movement nearby, Len swiftly drew his sword and slashed through dense underbrush. He climbed a tree with careful steps and began building a concealed lookout from there. He would wait and observe the surroundings closely. Applying scent-masking perfume, Len prepared to stay hidden. He recalled that white hawks preferred red berries and tall trees, but luring one would take precise planning. Although many believed platinum feathers could only be found after falling naturally, Len had learned of another method involving a white hawk in a calm, full state. He didn't need to harm the bird, just put it to sleep. Holding the tranquilizer, he steadied his breath and waited patiently. A distant flock appeared in the sky, gliding silently toward the forest canopy. Among them, one hawk stood out, its wings shimmered faintly. Len's eyes widened, tracking its movements. The group descended toward the red-berried trees. His moment had arrived. Whispering to himself, he prepared to act without startling them. Hawks began feeding, unaware of Len's presence in the game. Hundreds of feathers were obtainable, but here, acquiring even one was uncertain. Len clenched his sword. Even if he succeeded, he'd still need time to refine the feather. Time was running out, and delays were no longer an option. Squabbled lightly among the branches. One particularly large bird had just taken a bite, its glowing eyes, signaling it might be the target. Regret welled up. If only he had acted sooner. He began to consider backup plans in case this failed. As the flock stirred again, Len's eyes locked onto them. This might be his last chance before they vanished into the sky. Several hawks began to take flight, leaving only a few still pecking at the berries. The opportunity was slipping away. Remaining birds continued to feast undisturbed. From his perch, Len watched their behavior carefully, holding his breath and remaining silent. One hawk glanced around briefly, before dropping a small cluster of glowing feathers. Len's heart skipped as they fluttered gently to the ground. Weeks later, dressed in a formal black suit, Len stood tall, adjusting his collar. He hadn't expected this outfit to ever be useful. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and noble guests. The celebration had begun and Len was finally ready. In formal attire, raised his glass and complimented Len's appearance. Dressed sharply, Len humbly accepted the praise, quietly anticipating what was next. A hush fell over the ballroom as the grand doors creaked open. All eyes, including Ren's, turned toward the entrance. A graceful step crossed the threshold. Without a word, a soft hand reached out and took his. Together, they stepped onto the dance floor under the glow of the chandeliers. Their movements were watched from every angle. Applause echoed around the hall. She stood proudly, her presence commanding admiration. As Len stood calmly by her side, Licia stepped forward, her dress flowing gently as she moved into the light of the ballroom. With calm hands, she adjusted her gown, preparing herself to face the gathered guests. Len looked at her in silence. She smiled at him, and in that moment all his efforts felt worthwhile. Inside a grand ballroom, the atmosphere was festive as guests raised their glasses in celebration beneath golden chandeliers. Nobles, knights, and dignitaries filled the hall, mingling across the checkered marble floor, preparing for the highlight of the evening. An elder advisor briefed the young master about the tradition. Servants would offer gifts first, followed by knights, and lastly, the host himself. The young master acknowledged his role, understanding the order of presentation expected before the gathered audience. Yet the elder gently intervened, suggesting the boy's turn come after theirs, out of respect for his unique position. Len's eyes widened in disbelief, as he asked if the elder truly meant what he said. Without hesitation, the older man approached the stage, introducing the formal gift on behalf of the knights. He presented a full set of training gear from a famous imperial shop, delighting the young girl who received it. Standing among the crowd, Len placed a hand on his chest, steadying his breath before stepping forward with determination. With composed grace, Len offered his present to the girl, congratulating her by name in front of the entire hall. The girl beamed with gratitude, thanking her father warmly as Len looked on, surprised the order had changed. Questions stirred as Len wondered if the noble named Lizald had forgotten his part in the ceremony. Yet the elder calmly explained Lizald's demeanor likely meant he had something prepared and was simply waiting. Len sighed, realizing he'd somehow become the final presenter, but chose not to dwell on it. With steady steps, he approached the girl, offering birthday wishes with calm sincerity, completing his role at last. Len extended the neatly wrapped gift with both hands, hoping she would be pleased with it. His voice was calm, but his heart beat slightly faster. The girl accepted it with care, her arms wrapping around the box as if it were something precious beyond its appearance. Looking up, her expression softened. "Of course I'm happy," she said gently, her voice filled with genuine emotion. She admitted that any gift from Len, no matter what it was, would make her happy. That alone brought a quiet smile to his face. Carefully, she opened the lid. A soft light reflected from within, her gaze filled with warmth and anticipation for what Len had chosen just for her. Len stood quietly at the front, his expression composed, as guests watched him with growing interest. The girl stepped forward gracefully, her dress flowing with each motion, as she approached holding Len's gift. Curious, she unwrapped it carefully, only for her eyes to widen in surprise the moment she saw what lay inside. A beautifully crafted quill rested inside the box, glowing faintly under the ballroom lights, elegant and meaningful. The crowd, previously silent, reacted with admiration. Murmurs filled the hall, their attention drawn to the rare and symbolic gift Len had chosen. As the gift was revealed, gasps rippled through the room. The girl's eyes sparkled, stunned by the rare object before her. Whispers spread among the guests. The elder recognized it instantly, an enchanted white gold quill known for its elegance and rarity. The girl clutched it with a radiant smile, overjoyed. Her voice trembled as she confessed she felt so happy. She might just collapse from it. Len smiled softly, relieved. He joked that perhaps he should have chosen something less overwhelming. She quickly protested, insisting it was perfect, and she'd never give it back. As laughter returned and a feast was unveiled, music filled the hall, marking a joyful close to the celebration. As the meal was served, the maids proudly invited everyone to enjoy the dishes. Meanwhile, guests gathered around Len, still astonished by the rare white gold quill. With a humble smile, Len claimed he had stumbled upon it by chance during a visit to the forest. But in truth, it hadn't been easy to obtain. The memory flashed he had faced swift-winged beasts and obstacles, relying on skill and luck to secure the prized item. Later, the girl tapped Len gently and whispered with a soft smile, asking if she could speak with him alone for a moment. Len turned, startled by the time, as something unexpected now seemed to be approaching. As night blanketed the castle, the girl stepped onto the balcony, carrying the gift Len had given. With care, she adorned the rare quill in her hair. She turned to Len, her expression sincere. "Spending my birthday like this feels like a dream," she said, holding out a rectangular box toward him. Smiling warmly, she admitted it took time to prepare, but she chose it because she believed it suited him perfectly. Len was surprised. "For me?" he asked softly. She nodded, urging him to go ahead and open it. They sat together under the quiet night sky. As Len gently opened the case, curiosity and anticipation danced in both their eyes. Inside the elegant case lay a beautifully crafted short sword, its blade engraved with delicate vine-like patterns that shimmered in the light. A nearby guest recognized it, recalling a time when Len had lost a similar blade in battle. This gift was no ordinary replacement. As Len held it, the sword emitted a glow. She explained it wasn't just a weapon, it was a magical tool made from a rare material that could store power. She revealed that she had sealed her magic into the blade to its very limits, hoping it would protect him when needed. With a soft smile, she confessed she poured her energy into it every single day. A girl collapses after walking through the grand hall while a boy watches her from afar. Concerned, her fatigue is evident, and her steps had grown weak. Later, the boy meets her privately and gently hands her a wrapped gift. She looks at it with wide eyes, surprise. He reveals a beautifully engraved dagger, filled with glowing magical energy. It clearly holds special meaning. She receives the blade carefully, her hands trembling as she expresses gratitude. That night, she confesses she only celebrated his birthday because she wanted hers to be remembered too. The girl confessed she knew his birthday was in spring, but waiting until next year felt impossible. Nervously clutching her hands, she explained that she had planned to give him her gift today, not as a formality, but because it truly mattered to her. Seeing her flustered state, the boy couldn't help but smile. She yelled in frustration, asking why he was laughing, only to hear him softly apologize, still smiling. In his thoughts, he acknowledged the truth they had both worked hard, quietly, and separately. Just for this moment, as the sky darkened and stars began to appear, she gazed silently over the rooftops. A gentle sense of peace washed over her. The girl stared silently at the rooftops, her earlier cheer fading into quiet thought. Something lingered in her heart, uncertainty. From the balcony, the boy watched the same view. He wondered if perhaps they were more alike than either of them had realized. Len smiled faintly to himself, as if making a silent vow beneath the starry sky. She turned slightly, speaking softly as if addressing not just him, but the future they might walk together. Her voice was calm but carried meaning. He looked her in the eyes and asked if she meant it for now and beyond. The space between them grew still, waiting for her answer. The boy noticed her tears and asked gently why she was crying. Her quiet response caught him off guard. She struggled to speak clearly, her voice trembling. Despite her smile, the emotion she held back finally surfaced. Under the night sky, she gave no direct answer. Instead, she called it a secret and looked away. With a soft smile, she placed a finger to her lips. She was simply happy, nothing more, nothing less. Months after Lycia's birthday, a cloaked figure arrived at the gates of a distant noble estate under snowfall. The mansion stood tall behind wrought iron gates, guarded and solemn. A soldier approached cautiously, asking for an appointment. The visitor remained silent, gently lowering the hood. Long flowing hair spilled out as the figure revealed their face, catching the guard off guard with their noble aura. Realizing the visitor's identity, the guard panicked, apologizing for his ignorance. The visitor calmly placed a hat over their head again, asking not to be blamed they had chosen to hide. She ascended the grand staircase, where a butler opened the heavy doors with a respectful gesture. Inside, a nobleman named Ulysses Ignat awaited at his desk. Surprised by the guest's unexpected arrival, she removed her hat, revealing herself as Kuroa Highland, a renowned magician and principal of the Imperial Officer Academy. She apologized for the sudden visit, but her presence was warmly welcomed. The butler was asked to prepare tea and sweets for the meeting. As the two began discussing important matters, the servant acknowledged the request and left to make arrangements. Tea was served as the two settled into a more relaxed atmosphere. The warmth of the room contrasted with the businesslike tone of their initial exchange. Ulysses inquired about her sudden visit, having heard she had left the capital unexpectedly. She responded playfully, keeping the details vague and treating the question lightly. As sweets were brought in, she finally revealed her true purpose. Rather than work, she had come to hear news about someone specific, a boy named Ren. The name caught Ulysses off guard. His eyes sharpened, betraying a flicker of concern and suspicion. Smiling politely, he leaned forward and asked why she was seeking information about Len Ashton. Kuroa calmly explained her deep gratitude toward both the Ashton and Clausel families. Ulysses, though maintaining a composed smile, reminded her that the Clausel family had already helped her during Fiona's illness. Nearby, Edgar grew tense as he watched the situation unfold. Kuroa, in contrast, remained steady, her eyes fixed on her teacup, calculating her next move. Raising her hands in apology, she reassured everyone with a light-hearted tone, asking them not to be so guarded. Her cheerful expression began to ease the room. Reflecting on her past, she admitted she wasn't used to being protected. Having felt warmth from Len's actions, she expressed how comforting it had been. Ulysses turned to Edgar, instructing him to explain the incident that took place in Clausel. Edgar agreed, standing tall as he began recounting the details. Edgar admitted with regret that he had failed to properly explain Len's condition to Lady Fiona earlier. The reason became clear: Len had been gravely wounded. His body was covered in injuries, making his state too painful to describe without hesitation. As Kuroa walked through the halls, her presence drew attention. Two young girls ran toward her, calling out her name with excitement and joy. One of the girls, Fiona Ignat, smiled brightly. Although rehabilitation had been difficult, she could now move on her own again. Fiona greeted Kuroa with a radiant smile, assuring her that her health had greatly improved. She mentioned hearing how Kuroa had enjoyed speaking with her father. Kuroa, smiling gently, acknowledged the importance of conversation, but requested to examine Fiona, as she had in the past. Fiona agreed without hesitation. Inside the room, the examination proceeded in a calm, quiet atmosphere. As Kuroa checked her, Fiona closed her eyes after completing the check. Kuroa confidently said Fiona was stable without needing further medication. Before parting, Kuroa reminded Fiona not to remove the necklace she had given her. It wasn't just a charm, it was protection. Kuroa pointed toward a neatly displayed uniform, asking if Fiona had tried on the Academy's attire. Her expression was bright, hinting at excitement over Fiona's future. Fiona replied modestly, explaining she had made some minor adjustments. While the final exams were still ahead, she had heard it was best to be prepared early. Kuroa agreed, noting that admissions announcements come during the busiest season. She added with a wink that Fiona would look perfect in the uniform; it suited her well. Despite the compliment, Fiona admitted she couldn't yet imagine herself as a student. The thought felt distant and unfamiliar. She shared her past openly, revealing she had spent most of the year indoors. Fiona recalled feeling overwhelmed by the sheer energy of the capital. The bustling crowds and noise had made her hesitate. With a warm smile, Kuroa reassured her. She reminded Fiona that she already knew what a kind and wonderful girl she was. There was no reason to doubt herself. Then, pointing toward the academy uniform. Again, Kuroa encouraged her to envision a new future. Kuroa led her gently to the mirror, urging her to picture herself in that outfit. Standing tall, it was a moment of quiet encouragement. She asked Fiona to imagine walking through the capital with friends, laughing and sharing meals, even taking detours on the way home. Kuroa stood beside Fiona, her hand gently resting on her shoulder. She encouraged her to imagine all the fun things that awaited. Fiona closed her eyes in silence. Her lashes trembled slightly, reflecting a quiet resolve beginning to form within her. Moments later, her feet moved one step forward, then another toward a new beginning. She and Kuroa walked together, their strides in sync. Dressed in her uniform, Fiona stood proudly, Her hair danced in the breeze as her heart began to open. She wasn't alone anymore. The academy grounds bustled with students, surrounded by those who once felt distant. Fiona now stood among them, not as an outsider. Sun hung low as Fiona walked alongside a fellow student. Her gaze was lifted, smile gentle, steps filled with new confidence. Suddenly, realization struck her. Her cheeks turned bright red, and both hands rushed to her face. Embarrassment bloomed faster than she could contain. Kuroa, puzzled, asked what had happened, flustered. Fiona buried her face, insisting it was nothing, and begged her not to worry. She silently scolded herself. To imagine someone she hadn't even met to daydream so freely felt so shameful yet also innocent. As evening settled in, Kuroa looked up at the darkening sky. The time to return had come. She mentioned her recent journey to the Vald Mountains. When asked about her recent trip, Kuroa explained that the original exam venue had become unusable, so they had to scout alternative sites. She admitted that the harsh cliffs and narrow paths made the mountains unsuitable for examinees. Smiling with resignation, Kuroa reflected on how her spring had been entirely devoted to helping Fiona recover. The delay, though unfortunate, was inevitable. As they walked under the trees, the nobleman raised a valid concern. Wasn't that kind of information confidential? Kuroa reassured him with a grin. Reaching the grand gates, she paused. There was no need to see her off. Her task was complete, and she was content. Kuroa explained she had been working at the holy grounds for over a year. With many sacred artifacts involved, the government had dispatched people from all over the country. Ulysses smiled, noting it wasn't such a bad arrangement. A council without political rivalry could function smoothly. He encouraged Kuroa to take this chance to relax and stretch her wings. Checking the time, Kuroa gasped. She was on the verge of missing her magic ship. With no time to spare, she prepared to leave immediately. Before departing, she turned back one last time. With a warm smile, she thanked him and asked that Fiona be told she was cheering her on for the final exam. As night fell, the young man bid farewell at the gates of the academy, a solemn promise lingering in the air. A majestic airship soared into the night sky, illuminated by the full moon. With quiet resolve, the traveler departed toward a distant land. Snow fell gently over the fortified city, its castle towering high above the rooftops. The streets lay still under winter's hush. Inside a grand building, a young woman prepared for her duties. Her expression was calm as she reviewed documents behind the counter. A messenger entered with a letter. He addressed the woman formally, delivering a mission order. Two others at the counter turned to listen. Outside, two armored warriors awaited. One wielded a sword, the other bore animal-like features. Both stood with purpose and ease. Introductions followed. The warriors were allies assigned to the task. The mission had begun. A dim chandelier flickered above a map spread across a round table. A hand pressed down, ready to plan. Three figures gathered. One explained that the merchant group involved was tied to a noble, suggesting a trusted affiliation. The mission required escorting a messenger. The proposed guard was from the hero faction, raising the group's expectations. Young man hesitated. 1 month was longer than expected, and he silently processed the weight of the request. The path was revealed, a winding mountain route crossing dangerous terrain. The journey would not be simple. He listened carefully. He was told that combat skills were not necessary until entering the Baldur mountain range, where rough paths and monster sightings increased. Recalling a secret map, he realized Baldur was more dangerous than expected. A large dragon patrolled the skies above its cliffs. Despite the risk, he felt drawn to the mountain. Rumors spoke of treasure and ancient artifacts buried in hidden vaults. He expressed concern about the heavy snowfall this year, doubting the safety of the journey, especially through such harsh terrain. One companion explained the urgency. Rare monster materials had to be delivered on time to a blacksmith. Delays would jeopardize their client's status and future contracts. An additional reward was offered. The pay was double the standard rate, with a bonus promised if the mission was completed safely. The young man hesitated. He remained silent, processing the risks and time commitment. Politely, he declined. He explained he had other obligations and could not dedicate a full month to the task. The response was mixed. One teammate showed disappointment but seemed to understand the decision. They accepted his choice. The team acknowledged separate missions were sometimes necessary. Even if it meant losing a valuable companion for this journey, team leader remained optimistic. With 2 weeks before departure, he believed they could easily find a replacement for the mission. He encouraged the young man to relax and stay for a drink. After all, he had made the effort to visit the guild. The boy declined alcohol, politely requesting juice instead. He smiled, reminding them he was still a minor. Meanwhile, in a distant city, Airships arrive carrying students for the Empire's final academy exams. The skies buzz with magical engines. Among the arriving students, a girl stood silently by a window, her gaze firm and posture calm, preparing herself for what was to come. Final boarding checks were completed inside the control deck. Systems came online one by one, with status reports confirming all green. A sharp command initiated departure. Destination data was requested as preparations tightened around launch protocol. Doubts sparked over the accuracy of their route, but assurance came swiftly. Multiple departments, including magic engineers, had verified the plan. Despite concerns, prior reviews left no room for hesitation. If mistakes existed, the harsh conditions would expose them. Paperwork confirmed approval. With the council's decision in hand, orders remained unchanged. Duty pressed forward, routine or not. Propellers spun to life, blades slicing through the snow-heavy air with rising speed and force. Massive craft lifted from its station, humming steadily as it cleared the bridge arches and climbed into the sky. From inside the academy, a girl stood near the glass, her expression quiet, eyes tracking the departing vessel. Magic surged around the airborne structure. Runic symbols flickered across its hull as it accelerated toward its assigned destination. Course locked, flight arced across the wintry horizon, aiming straight for the dangerous Baldur mountain range. Snow swept across jagged peaks. Wind howled over the ridge as the ship approached the harsh mountain pass ahead. The girl looked surprised, her hands covering her mouth as she watched something unfold before her. Len trained hard with the sword, facing off against a veteran knight. After the match, the knight placed a hand on Len's shoulder with approval, while the girl observed quietly in the background. Outside of training, Len performed daily tasks. He prepared warm drinks in the kitchen and shoveled snow from the rooftops during winter. In the study, Len sat across from the girl, focused on reading documents as they worked together in silence. A maid entered the room, delivering reports collected from knights stationed in various villages. Reports of snow damage and blocked roads filled the room as Len and his companions reviewed the documents. A decision was made to send knights for relief. Len entered and confirmed whether knights were being selected for dispatch. He learned the matter was urgent and affecting many villagers volunteering to help. Len mentioned his past experience with repairs in rural areas alongside his father. Recalling a past expedition, Len expressed a strong desire to contribute again. Shortly after, Len's participation in another expedition was confirmed, just as the situation in the region began to shift. In the palace, news arrived of an emergency signal from a tower deep within the Bartle mountain range. Len listened as the situation was explained. An old fortress used in emergencies might now be sheltering someone in distress. A sealed letter had arrived, addressed specifically to Len, requesting his involvement once more. Reading the letter, Len noted that the contents were similar to the previous request, but this time it came from a person named Midas. The situation involved multiple known figures. A man with a confident smile appeared in Len's memory, the one now awaiting rescue. Len reflected on the state of the old fortress. It was too outdated to offer proper shelter, and anyone without warmth could freeze quickly. He informed the nobleman that someone he knew personally was likely among the adventurers awaiting rescue. Len recalled that before leaving, the man mentioned he was escorting a noble's merchant. The request was tied to an influential noble faction. The nobleman sighed. If the rescue failed, the Crassel family might be blamed. Leading to political trouble, Len apologized for not reporting the matter earlier. Despite the complications, the noble had already arranged knights to visit nearby villages and considered dispatching additional forces toward the Bartle Mountains. He thought about the lives in the villages and the importance of avoiding political complications for the Crassel family. He made a clear request to be included in the group heading toward the Bartle Mountains. Though hesitant to burden Len further, the nobleman acknowledged Len's dependable nature. Len assured him it would be just a small detour. Len expressed his desire to protect the place he considered home, surrounded by the people he cared about. The nobleman agreed, accepting Len's offer to join the mission, but added a condition before finalizing the decision. Nobleman approved Len's journey to the fortress with the knights, but prohibited him from formally accepting the special request. He explained that if Len took the request as an adventurer, it would bind him to escort duties through dangerous winter conditions. Len accepted the condition without protest, expressing gratitude for the concern and opportunity. The city gates opened and a convoy of knights and travelers prepared to depart into the snowy frontier. Outside the gate, Len greeted the rescue party warmly. The group welcomed him as one of their own before the journey began. Rushing through the snow, a girl approached, her steps hurried and filled with purpose. Len turned as Rishia called out to him. She reached out and asked him to extend his hand. With both hands, she performed a ritual, channeling a glowing magical force into Len's palm. It was a sacred spell, Rishia explained the effect would last only a few hours, but she hoped it would help Len move more easily and avoid injury. He thanked her warmly. Rishia quietly admitted she wished she could go with him, but her father hadn't allowed it. Len assured Rishia that he would be fine. He promised to fight on her behalf as well, carrying her wishes with him. He showed the charm she had given him earlier, tucked safely beside his sword, stating he didn't need to worry. Rishia nodded, but emotion filled her eyes. She held her hands together tightly. Looking serious, she made Len promise one thing before leaving, a condition she needed him to agree to. With a smile, she asked him to never overdo it. She saw him off with a heartfelt reminder: come back safely. The sun rose over the icy expanse of the Bartle mountain range. A cold wind swept across the rugged peaks as the journey began. Beneath the frozen sky, a long caravan of riders and wagons moved steadily through the snow-covered forest. Troops advanced in formation along a frozen lake, banners raised. At the front, 2 leaders maintained a steady pace, their faces marked by silent focus. Among the vanguard were seasoned warriors and a cloaked figure with wolf-like ears, all armed and prepared for the unknown ahead. Len rode in silence at the center of the group, eyes forward behind him. Allies followed, bound by a shared mission through the winter woods. That night, the group rested by a campfire deep in the woods. Len shared a quiet meal with companions as others settled under the cold sky. By morning, the caravan crossed a stone bridge spanning a frozen river. Snow continued to fall across the mountain path. They reached a small village nestled in the valley. Len spoke with a local, arranging supplies while others mingled among the townsfolk. To repay the village's hospitality, Len helped clear snow with the soldiers, working alongside them in silence. At night, the journey resumed. Len rested beside his horse, sword in hand, eyes closed beneath a starlit sky. Len visited the stables, gently greeting his horse before setting off. The group advanced toward a large stone estate hidden among snowy trees. Standing at the edge of a cliff, Len gazed at the towering Bartle mountain range. The path ahead was steep and treacherous. They began their ascent. The wind howled as the group marched in single file, climbing deeper into the harsh terrain. Blizzard struck without warning. Len pressed forward, shielding his face, while others struggled against the biting cold snow piled high along the path. Some routes were buried entirely, leaving even trees hidden beneath the drifts. Team halted as heavy snow blocked their path. Len considered a detour, wary of triggering an avalanche with careless magic or equipment. Thou eager to reach the fortress, the wolf-eared warrior advised delaying departure. The terrain had become too dangerous to proceed. That night, Len spotted a distant smoke signal rising from the mountains. Someone was still alive out there. They took shelter in a snow cave. Len confirmed that a missing group likely survived, though something had clearly gone wrong. Despite their strength and experience, the other party had vanished. Len couldn't shake the thought what had truly happened to them. The group discussed the risks of advancing. There was concern that the missing party might have been immobilized by monsters or terrain. They gathered around a magical heater, planning the remaining 2-day trek. Supplies were secured, roles assigned, and routes reviewed. As preparations continued, lighthearted moments emerged. Some joked about traveling with Len, admiring his quiet presence compared to others. March resumed at daybreak. The team carefully scaled icy slopes, hauling gear and supplies in steady formation. Later that evening, Len handed a lantern to a guard, ensuring the night watch remained vigilant under the falling snow. Len led the climb up a vertical cliff, securing gear and supporting others. Ropes strained as cargo was pulled across the rock face. That night, he rested in a cave, sipping from a cup as the moon cast light over the frozen peaks. By morning, the group pressed forward under clear skies. Len marched steadily, burdened with supplies like the rest. They reached a suspension bridge stretching across a vast gorge. Each step creaked as dozens crossed slowly in single file. While crossing, Len recalled legends of past lava flows beneath this canyon. Now quiet under the snow, the group advanced through a narrow, icy pass, unaware of what lay ahead. Snow swirled around them, visibility thinning. A sharp gust struck. One of the scouts sensed something unusual in the sky and called for the others to stop. Len stood still as tension rose. The warrior with wolf ears confirmed it. Monsters were approaching. Far ahead, a fortress appeared under attack. Swarms of winged creatures circled above, assaulting the stronghold from the air. A massive horde of beasts, led by a towering armored giant, surged from the mountains. Winged creatures filled the sky as the ground trembled under the marching pack. Standing atop a snowy hill, a group of warriors formed ranks. One of them, eyes sharp and alert, scanned the battlefield. Countless enemies advanced toward the city walls. The defenders braced for impact, weapons drawn, prepared for an overwhelming siege. Without warning, a massive explosion rocked the castle entrance. Bodies were thrown into the air as chaos erupted among the ranks. In response, young mages unleashed a counterattack. Flames danced from their hands, carving through enemies. Firestorms streaked across the battlefield, scorching waves of beasts in their path. Flames exploded upon contact, scattering bodies across the snow. A deafening blast tore through enemy lines. Warriors were hurled into the air, consumed by smoke and shock amidst the chaos. An unrelenting charge of mutated beasts surged forward. In response, a young warrior summoned a wall of magic, halting their momentum for a brief moment. Amid the melee, an archer leapt above. Arrows aimed, confusion spread among the attackers as unexpected magic rained from all sides. Rushing forward, the commander raised his shield. He gave orders to extract survivors as the castle burned and the enemy poured in. Two unfamiliar youths stepped into the battlefield. Their sudden appearance caught the attention of nearby allies, uncertain of their allegiance. One warrior paused and offered a temporary alliance. Despite the confusion, his words calmed the tension, and the strangers nodded in silent agreement. To everyone's surprise, the new fighters displayed incredible strength. Young yet skillful, they cut through enemies with precision and calm. Suddenly, a new wave of beasts charged from the castle, led by airborne monsters and roaring brutes. The defenders fell back under the pressure. Above them, dragon-like creatures descended. A cloaked figure soared through the storm, unleashing another unpredictable threat to the battlefield. The girl raised her hand calmly. Snowflake-shaped blades began to spin around her, forming a dazzling circle of ice magic with precise movements. She guided the frozen shards outward. Her focus never wavered as the storm of projectiles swirled around her fingertips. A wave of destructive power burst forth. The ice blades flew in every direction, striking flying monsters and tearing through the enemy ranks. Screeches and roars echoed through the sky as winged beasts fell. The icy explosions scattered the invaders, but more creatures pressed in. One monstrous foe charged directly at her. Before it could strike, a sword-wielding ally leapt from above, preparing to protect her. Her expression shifted to one of silent concern. Amid the snow and chaos, she observed everything unfolding with quiet intensity. Suddenly, her eyes lit up with relief. Something or someone had reignited a spark of hope within her. Together, the girl and the sword wielder launched a joint assault. Ice magic and steel collided with the beast, sending it crashing to the ground. She turned, shocked by his strength. He faced the enemies without hesitation, declaring himself a rescuer sent to help. Without pause, he leapt into battle again. His strike crushed the beast, scattering the surrounding foes in all directions. A swirl of snowflakes surrounded the girl as she turned, her body glowing faintly with power. She faced the threat without fear. With a single motion, she unleashed a torrent of ice blades. The magic spiraled outward, cutting through the air with precision. Dozens of winged beasts were caught in the attack. Frozen shards pierced their wings, sending them crashing to the ground in defeat. While she held the skies, her ally cut down enemies below. She watched his swordsmanship, silently impressed by his unmatched skill. A new monster burst from the horde, roaring. It charged toward them both, but neither flinched as they prepared to strike again. Back to back, the two warriors stood firm. Her magic circled them like a shield, while his blade reflected the light of battle. As the sun broke through the clouds, silence fell across the frozen battlefield. A battered castle stood tall amidst the snow-covered cliffs. Soldiers emerged from the gates. They gathered around the fallen beasts, their expressions filled with awe and exhaustion after the long battle. Amid the remains, the two stood quietly. She dropped to her knees, breathless. He looked ahead, sword lowered, the threat finally gone. He stepped forward and extended a hand. Snowflakes drifted between them as he softly asked if she was all right. Smiling faintly, she admitted it was her first time fighting so many monsters. Now that it was over, fatigue finally caught up with her. He offered his hand again. She took it with gratitude, surprised by the faint spark of warmth that passed between them. His eyes landed on a necklace around her neck. It was a low-grade anti-magic charm, an odd choice for someone of her skill. Reinforcements approached. One of the leaders noted they'd heard she was the group's representative and acknowledged her command during the battle. Without delay, they asked why a group of young warriors had entered such a dangerous region together, seeking answers for their sudden arrival. She stood silently, her eyes drawn to the emblem on the knight's shield. Questions lingered, but she held them back for now. The bearded man confirmed their mission. They had been sent by their lord to rescue the adventurers trapped in this hostile region. Relieved, she softened. The knight politely asked for their names, curious about who had led such a capable group. After a glance toward her companion, she stepped forward. Her cloak swayed with the wind as she placed a hand over her heart. With quiet strength, she introduced herself to the gathered knights. "My name is Fiona." The girl finally spoke her true identity. She was the only daughter of the ruling lord of Upime. Her expression remained calm, but her voice carried weight. The silence around her deepened. Across from her, the boy froze. Shock overtook his face as he realized who had been standing beside him all along. Fiona, the daughter of a powerful lord, stood before a man cloaked in shadows. Their meeting marked the beginning of an unexpected connection rooted in secrecy and fate else, where a young warrior stepped over a fallen beast, his sword still dripping. A girl emerged from the snowy silence, her coat fluttering in the wind. She looked at the warrior as if recognizing him, her steps slow but steady. Inside castle walls, a commanding figure issued orders. Tension grew as rumors of young outsiders entering dangerous lands began to spread among soldiers. From above the fortress, the girl looked down, her expression heavy. A girl stepped forward and calmly explained their presence behind her. Several youths stood alert. They had taken shelter in the fortress days earlier. The knight, surprised, questioned her claim. Her answer was steady, confirming their status and the reason they came to this remote land. Snow-covered peaks towered beyond. This place wasn't ordinary. It served as the final trial ground for elite candidates from a prestigious imperial academy. Recognition dawned on the warriors. They hadn't expected to meet the academy's most promising class here. Tension eased slightly as introductions began. Respect was mutual, though pride still lingered in the air. One adventurer recalled a past request from a noble family that led to unexpected complications. Another shared similar concerns, noting how elite academy students often surpassed expectations. They gathered in a wide circle weighing the risks. While the rewards for aiding nobles were high, despite their hesitation, a female warrior offered assurance. As long as boundaries were respected, she promised protection until they descended the mountain. Hearing this, the girl responded with calm acceptance. She agreed to the arrangement, her group silently supporting her decision. However, one observer questioned their readiness. He wondered if simply enduring the snow was enough for those aspiring to join the special class. The knight introduced the academy's name, Riomel, a place reserved only for those wielding exceptional talent. He acknowledged their earlier performance, hinting at potential. With measured tone, the girl explained their limitations. Though untrained, they endured a long journey through the mountains before seeking refuge. Monsters had appeared in unusual numbers. The group theorized they were specifically drawn to vulnerable youths, draining resources and forcing cautious retreat. Watching silently, a boy reflected. The final trial for the elite class was supposed to be even more grueling than this ordeal. He pondered further. The true purpose of the test wasn't only survival but to assess adaptability, stamina, and unity under pressure. Doubt crept into his thoughts. He questioned whether anyone could have survived under these harsh conditions, yet part of him refused to accept that possibility. The Bardo mountain range, especially in its current state, was treacherous. Even seasoned adventurers would hesitate to tread where this cursed snowfall blanketed the land. Realization dawned. Something about the current incident felt far from ordinary, too calculated, too dangerous, as if powerful forces moved behind the scenes. Conversations revealed that some examinees were actually nobles from foreign nations. Their presence may have shifted everyone's behavior. Fiona mentioned they were searching for fellow adventurers. A nearby group confirmed they had seen them, pointing toward a possible reunion. She led the group through the castle corridors. She admitted that knowing others were inside had once brought her peace. But the sight that awaited them told another story. The room appeared abandoned, dust hung in the air, and silence filled the space. Now on the opposite side, another sleeping hall mirrored the first. The atmosphere was still, yet something felt wrong. Inside, adventurers lay in their beds, restless. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they tossed in their sleep. One boy clenched his jaw, trembling. Nightmares gripped him as if something unseen lingered just beyond the walls. The man with beast-like ears rushed to the boy's side. His name, Kai, escaped his lips in panic as he tried to wake him. Fiona explained the grim truth: none of the people found in the room could move. They were too weak even to stand. An adventurer reported they had come in response to wolf smoke signals, now realizing those signals had been sent by Fiona's group. Among the examinees, someone trained in healing had examined the fallen. A strange magical surge had been detected in their bodies. Their condition resembled container fracture, a term used to describe those whose mana vessels were at the brink of collapse. A discussion unfolded about the illness triggered by imbalanced magical energy. Even minor contact could activate it, yet the cause remained unclear. Though symptoms mirrored the fatal container fracture disease, the victims slowly stabilized. Recovery seemed possible with rest and time. The rescuers agreed to evaluate the situation further. Only after that would they discuss escorting the group down the mountain safely. Meanwhile, Fiona reflected on her decision. Once again, she found herself lending support to the noble Clausel family. Elsewhere, two adventurers debated their compensation, grumbling that the ordeal better be worth the reward. As the boy turned to leave, the elf and blonde exchanged amused glances. They decided to leave the rest to the men. Moments later, they flanked him playfully. With mischief in their eyes, they asked if he wanted to share a room with them. He sighed, sidestepped their teasing, and reminded them to stay focused. The situation was still serious. Their laughter followed as he walked away. "He's so cold," they giggled, clearly entertained. Down the corridor, he paused. Fiona stood there, surprised and shy. Her hands clutched near her heart as their eyes met. Fiona hesitated, blushing as she gathered her words. The boy watched silently, waiting for her to speak. He reassured her, asking if she had been watching the others out of concern. She quickly affirmed she had seen everything and everyone. Relieved. He smiled, but before she could say more, another girl approached, urgently asking to speak with him in private. Fiona stepped back. Surprised, the boy politely excused himself, leaving Fiona to quietly call after him as adventurer before parting. Fiona thanked him sincerely for his help. The boy nodded, silently wondering if his clothing made him look like a true adventurer. They stood in silence, each lost in thought. He realized he'd missed the right moment to introduce himself to her. A heavy snowstorm battered the fortress, isolating it from the outside world. Inside, tension mounted as communication lines were cut. Within the castle halls, three women discussed urgent matters while the kitchen prepared meals for incoming guests. Servants moved quickly, sensing urgency. Knights gathered at the dining hall. They knew the examinees were anxious. Aid was forbidden unless they proved their worth alone. Two knights reviewed the trial conditions. Third-party involvement was barred, yet the region hadn't been sealed, raising concern. A girl concluded something was wrong. With adventurers already present before the trial, she suspected sabotage, not accident. Discussions intensified as suspicion grew around third-party interference. The knights speculated that nobility or even royalty might be involved. A seasoned knight questioned the reason for a noble lady's presence. Though politics offered one answer, the risks seemed too great for mere rumor control. Leaders debated the headmaster's sudden absence with mounting pressure. Ignoring the students' plight could lead to chaos. Among the injured, some could not move for days. Reinforcements appeared to be the only practical solution. While treatment was ongoing using Lord Ignat's mysterious skill, questions remained. Curiosity stirred what kind of skill was being used. The knights expressed surprise at what they had learned about Ignat, their words reflecting shared astonishment with Ren by chance. Len encountered the woman whose life had once been saved. He hadn't expected to see her again in such a place. Though mistaken for an adventurer, Len hesitated to reveal his true identity, unsure if now was the right time. Tensions between examinees and adventurers made things delicate. Waiting until they left the mountain might ease communication. Suddenly, a long corridor filled with dark mist began to stir, an unsettling sign something ominous had awakened. Alone in his room, Len examined his belongings. Among them was a magical tool he didn't know how to operate. As he puzzled over it, he recalled that Licia had prepared the device for him. She even left notes to guide him through its use. Following her instructions, he tapped the device. It activated, casting light that revealed faint, hidden writing on a folded paper. Looking closer, he realized the words had been written without ink. A secret message was now fully visible. Licia's heartfelt note appeared: "If you're gone too long, I'll come find you." Len smiled gently and nodded in understanding. Night fell over the kingdom, its snow-covered forests and towering mountains blanketed in a quiet stillness beneath a sky filled with drifting stars. From a high balcony, a young woman gazed upward, the starlit sky mirroring the questions resting silently in her heart. A gentle breeze touched her face as she reassured the maid nearby that she was fine, just enjoying the cool night air. They descended the staircase, and the maid, sensing her unease, softly asked if she was worried about Ren. She hesitated, then admitted it would be a lie to say she wasn't. But even so, she wasn't as anxious as everyone believed. Her gaze sharpened with conviction. Among everyone in the world, she alone understood how truly strong Len was, far beyond appearances or titles. The maid offered a gentle smile, realizing her earlier concern had been answered without hesitation. Their exchange ended with light-hearted agreement. As the night deepened, the maid suggested tea before bed. The noblewoman accepted, seeing no reason to decline such a warm offer. Inside her room, soft light spilled across the bed. At the center lay a folded dress, one she hadn't expected to see again. Shock swept across her face. Embarrassment followed as the maid commented on the oddly timed wardrobe choice, catching her completely off guard. Caught off guard, she quickly clutched the dress to her chest. She claimed it had no special meaning, though her expression said otherwise. A memory surfaced her sitting alone, holding the dress gently. The maid observed silently, the image etched in her mind. A faint smile appeared on the maid's face. Perhaps, she thought, the young lady simply missed him more than she admitted, blushing slightly. The girl whispered that it was their little secret. The maid responded with a soft smile and a knowing nod. Far away, outside the snowy fortress, a new crisis unfolded. Injured were being carried down the mountain. Snow piled high around the fortress walls as concern grew for the injured. One member, Kai, looked especially unwell, prompting others to suggest resting longer. Despite the risks, a group resolved to call for reinforcements. They would descend with knights and return quickly. Len watched silently as the departing group trudged through the snow, burdened both physically and emotionally. As they made their way down the mountain, something shifted in the wind. A sudden disturbance in the snow hinted that danger was near. From the blizzard charged a monstrous beast, a colossal boar, enraged and wild. Len stepped forward, a lone sword drawn, ready to face the threat head-on. The massive boar lunged wildly, but Len moved with precision. With one swift motion, he brought the beast down, snow erupting around them. Back at the fortress, cheers erupted. The slain beast would feed them for weeks. Grateful knights praised Ren, offering to handle the butchering and storage. Later, water cascaded from the showerhead. The battle was over, but fatigue clung to him like steam in the air. Len exited the bath, refreshed but still deep in thought. As he walked through the corridor, someone appeared unexpectedly. Around the corner, he collided with a girl, both startled. They froze eyes wide, caught in a moment of accidental surprise. She immediately apologized, startled and embarrassed by the sudden bump. Len quickly reassured her, insisting the fault was mutual. A short silence followed. Both of them opened their mouths to speak at the same time, only to awkwardly pause. Len took the lead and offered her the right of way. She thanked him quietly, still flustered, but grateful for his calm demeanor. With hesitation, she revealed her reason for approaching. Someone dear to her was in Clausel, and she hoped Len might have met them. Though she considered asking the knights, they all seemed too busy. So instead, she turned to Len, hoping he might hold the answer she sought. She explained that Len's age seemed close to the person who once saved her. That small resemblance sparked her curiosity. As silence fell between them, she smiled nervously and asked him to forget what she had said, calling it a foolish assumption. Len tried to reassure her, but she bowed apologetically, feeling as though she had broken a promise that never existed. Before leaving, she glanced back. The words she truly wanted to say never left her lips. Snowstorm clouds circled the jagged peaks of the northern mountains as an ancient force stirred beneath the frozen landscape. Far away, a girl rested uneasily in bed, unaware that the sealed power had begun to awaken. Under the winter moon, the city prepared for another ordinary day. Among the crowds, she walked silently, her dream still vivid in her mind. Students gathered outside the academy gates. She followed them, unsure why the wind carried a strange, sharp chill. Beside a mysterious boy, she stepped forward. The path ahead shimmered with secrets tied to a forgotten prophecy. A faint smile appeared on the boy's lips, concealing a calm confidence beneath his formal attire. He turned slightly, radiating warmth, yet something behind his eyes hinted at deeper intentions. Suddenly, the girl's eyes snapped open. A vivid memory resurfaced, pulling her abruptly from sleep. Clutching her chest, she sat up in confusion. The boy's face, someone she had never met, lingered in her thoughts. Elsewhere, near the fortress walls, two figures peered down a well. Whatever lay below held answers neither of them expected. Under the night sky, a man with scaly skin drank from a bottle while others quietly moved crates and jars under the castle's archway. Morning arrived with warmth. Children shared a meal inside the stronghold, and the atmosphere felt light. Later, as snow began to fall, a figure stood alone atop the castle wall. He gazed into the dark valley, watchful and still. A guard changed shifts, meeting the boy at the tower. After a brief exchange, the boy descended the stairs to the main gate, lost in thought. Pausing at a door, he stared ahead. Something beyond that threshold was calling him, something he needed to face before the night ended. Inside the kitchen, the girl turned in surprise. She hadn't expected to see him standing there, especially not at this hour. Both exchanged greetings. He remained composed while she struggled to hide her nervousness. Heart racing with unspoken questions, recognition dawned in her eyes. The boy before her matched the face from her dreams. Uncertainty and realization mixed in her expression. He asked if something was wrong. She forced a smile, dismissing the moment as nothing. Though her thoughts lingered on the connection, wanting to distract herself, she offered to make tea. He agreed and stepped closer, unaware that this small moment was the beginning of something important. Steam began rising steadily from the pot as it simmered on the stove. The boy stood nearby, arms folded, silently observing the process. Neither spoke for a moment. He glanced down, thoughtful, while she watched the bubbles in the water, trying to calm her mind. He reached up to open a cabinet, revealing rows of labeled jars. The girl looked over, surprised by the number of tea leaves stored. Without saying much, both raised their hands to reach the same shelf. Their timing matched, momentarily catching each other off guard. Her hands moved forward, fingers brushing against the glass containers. For a second, everything else faded as their attention locked on a single choice. She froze for a moment, caught off guard by something in his gaze. Her eyes widened with uncertainty, though no words were spoken. Apologies were exchanged quickly. He took responsibility for the near collision at the shelf while she admitted she hadn't been paying attention either. Offering to prepare the tea himself, he held the jar carefully. She hesitated, then agreed, still surprised by his kindness. He began the process with practiced motion, measuring the leaves and watching the sandglass mark the time with precision. When the tea was ready, he poured it and handed her a cup. They sat by the fireplace, the quiet between them filled with something unspoken but warm. Her reflection shimmered in the surface of the tea. She brought the cup closer, inhaled gently, and took a careful sip in silence. The taste brought a genuine smile to her face. With bright eyes, she looked up and softly said that it was delicious. He responded modestly, explaining he had learned while caring for someone close who had been ill. Still holding the cup, she questioned if her clumsiness had been obvious, her voice uncertain. She explained that tea had once been part of her medicine. She had tried many times to learn, but no matter how hard she worked, she only managed to brew flavorless, bitter results. He raised the cup with a light tone, admitting that brewing tea was surprisingly complex. Then he asked gently if she had learned it for medicinal reasons. She nodded and explained. The medicine she had taken worked best when mixed with tea rather than water. He considered her words, remarking how using magical ingredients must alter the nature of the medicine. Still, she found that the bitterness of the medicine faded when taken with tea. His observation made her laugh softly, with warmth lingering in the air. He listened intently, still holding his cup. The fire crackled quietly behind him as their simple conversation continued. She sat calmly with the cup in her hands, her posture relaxed as the warmth of the fire surrounded them both. A soft expression formed as she looked down, content. Her grip on the cup was gentle, almost protective. He watched her with a faint smile. No words were needed. The silence was comfortable, not empty. Outside, something flared brightly in the distance, a burst of light tearing through the sky, signaling something far greater was unfolding beyond the castle walls. She walked back alone through the corridor, wrapped in thought. Despite the cold stone around her, her heart felt lighter than before. With a calm smile, he brought the cup to his lips, unaware of the shift in her expression as she stared at him. He casually mentioned the effectiveness of medicine enhanced by magical ingredients. Her eyes widened instantly in shock. She had never spoken of using magic-based materials, and yet he spoke of it so naturally as if he already knew. Doubt crept in. A vision struck her, flashes of a deadly beast, a lone warrior in battle, and a cart loaded with heavy supplies. Something didn't add up. Just as the unease settled in her chest, a knight called out, reminding her it was late. She nodded, but her thoughts now lingered elsewhere. She hesitated, sweat forming as her thoughts raced. Something he said didn't seem like a coincidence. Confused and shaken, she turned away quickly. A nearby guard noticed her distress and asked if something was wrong. Gathering courage, she looked up. Before walking away, she stopped and asked the guard for a single favor. A brutal snowstorm swept across the mountain forest, blinding all in its path. Despite the fierce wind, a group of armored soldiers pressed forward, heads low, cloaks whipping behind them as they climbed the slope. Reaching the summit, they finally spotted the fortress. Relief washed over them as they approached the gates, their leader signaling the successful return with reinforcements. Inside the courtyard, supply crates were being unloaded. Guards and merchants moved swiftly, preparing for the next stage of travel. One young man stepped forward. Eyes fixed, he asked calmly about Midas, his expression serious. The young man listened as the soldier revealed that Midas had vanished, leaving only a final message behind. Tension rose among the group. Although they had started the journey together, doubts grew due to a note claiming Kai was too unwell to continue. Accusations echoed around. Some questioned whether saving just one companion justified abandoning others, wondering if loyalty still held meaning for their allies. Refusing to waver, one warrior stepped forward, promising to see things through. Past debts and battles like the gargoyle incident demanded they stay united. Without hesitation, the boy lit a signal flame. Snow pounded the castle walls as the light pierced the storm. At dawn, The castle gates opened as participants and merchants gathered in orderly lines preparing for the next phase. An instructor addressed the group, urging examinees to travel light due to the harsh snow. The boy quietly secured his belongings. Understanding the risk, while adjusting his scarf, he sensed something odd like a faint warm breeze against the chill. Soon, the convoy departed. Some talked about going home, while others feared what lay ahead if their next test involved monsters. As the line stretched into the distance, doubts lingered. No examiner had appeared, and the path was longer than expected. The group halted as they reached the edge of a steep cliff. Ahead stood a narrow suspension bridge swaying ominously in the wind. Cables creaked with every gust, and the bridge stretched far across the misty gorge, its full length barely visible in the swirling snow. Everyone stared in silence. The depth below remained hidden, but the danger was obvious. Anxiety flickered across their faces. Their instructor ordered them forward, offering his cloak or sleeve for support. One boy, defiant, refused help and declared their readiness. Without hesitation, he marched ahead, insisting that fear had no place in those chosen for this elite trial. Snowflakes danced in the dark as he stepped onto the bridge. His vision narrowed, and the world around him faded into weightless silence. With 10 steps, he crossed the swaying planks. The instructor waited calmly ahead, offering silent reassurance despite the creaking ropes. Though he tried to appear confident, a flicker of hesitation escaped him. The instructor reminded him it wasn't about fear, it was about not being a burden. 2 women volunteered to guide the younger ones across. He nodded, watching them take the lead with composed determination. One by one, the group followed. Helping hands reached out, steadying each other across the shaking span as wind howled below. While the group gathered outside the bridge's end, he quietly watched the others settle. A few exchanged glances, waiting for someone to speak. The knight was expected to step in, but instead, the boy was approached. He hesitated before offering a polite nod from across the snow. A girl approached him slowly. Her eyes met his, filled with something softer than mere gratitude. Lowering her gaze, she shyly asked if she could rely on him. Her voice wavered, but her request was clear. Blushing slightly, she smiled. She admitted she had hoped from the beginning that he would be the one to help. The wind howled around the bridge, but 2 figures remained steady. A gentle grip on her coat gave silent reassurance as they moved forward. With careful steps, they crossed the swaying planks. She walked behind him, trusting his lead without saying a word. He paused for a moment and turned. She had been watching him closely. When asked if something was wrong, she offered a simple, sincere smile. Calmly, she said she wasn't afraid, with him protecting her. There was nothing to worry about, she truly believed that. Later, lying awake in bed, she remembered darker days. The time before this journey had been uncertain, every day a question of survival. Morning light filtered gently through the window. Outside, birds soared freely across the sky, signaling a peaceful day ahead. She smiled softly, her heart calm. Compared to the days of isolation and fear, there was nothing left to be afraid of. A quiet smile spread across his face in return. From the swaying bridge below, the wind carried a moment of relief. Suddenly, he paused. That strange warm breeze brushed past again, unnatural, especially amid the snowstorm. Others felt it too. A surge of heated air slammed into the bridge, and in that moment they realized it wasn't just the weather, something was coming. Beneath the bridge, a swirling vortex expanded rapidly, dark and impossibly deep. The structure trembled with growing intensity. Without warning, she screamed for them to run. Something was coming fast and from below. Their hands tightened around the ropes. A fiery burst erupted upward from the eye of the vortex. Twin columns of flame spiraled like living tornadoes rising through the storm. They both turned, eyes wide as the inferno clawed its way skyward. The wind howled louder, now tainted with heat and chaos. All around them, the firestorm twisted with unnatural force. The once still clouds fractured as something far greater stirred within the vortex. A violent storm surged beneath the bridge, tearing through the sky with terrifying force. The planks groaned as pressure built. The vortex expanded. Debris and flame twisted upwards, surrounding the pair with walls of chaos.